they always looked at Honore as the man who broke the color barrier at the sheriff's office. And it was about 40 years before they hired another Honore at the sheriff's office. Before they hired another one.
It's 4 p.m. Stand up. It's count time. It's time for every man and woman to stand up and be counted. I'm Brother L.D. Azobra, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Count Time Podcast. Yeah, I know y'all see this handsome young man we have up here today. Someone I've been knowing since I arrived in Baton Rouge. He's been a sheriff, state sheriff deputy. He's been a state representative, businessman, community activist, community leader, and so much more. And you're gonna get a chance to hear his story today. You're gonna hear from him. And like I said, welcome, Dalton, Honore. Welcome to Count Time.
Thanks a lot, Lyman. And as Lyman spoke earlier, that we've been knowing each other a long time. Baton Rouge is my home. I've been here all my life. Matter of fact, I've been in Scotland, a part of Baton Rouge.
All your life.
I always said that Baton Rouge came to Scotlandville. We didn't move to Baton Rouge.
You about to start some trouble already. Now, what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, Scotlandville was a little community that I grew up in. Been here all my life. It was a all-black community. Only white people we saw was the Italians who owned some of the grocery stores in this community.
You didn't consider a white back then?
No. We in Southern University moved here in 1914 because of the Scotlandville, the largest area with blacks dominating in the state of Louisiana at that time.
Okay. But also, I mean, you probably didn't know this, but I thought I was going to be your son-in-law.
You might have.
Because when I met your beautiful daughter, Desiree, years ago, she was working over there with Collins, Temple. And I said that was one of those beautiful women I had seen. This is a classy lady, classy woman. So I'm disappointed that didn't happen.
Well, Desiree is my oldest daughter and only daughter.
Only daughter.
And I have two sons that's followed. All of them adult.
Dalton Jr.
and Darryl. Right. Darryl. And Darryl has been with the Baton Rouge Police Force for 29 years. So he's got about a year and a half to go for retirement.
So he followed living in your footsteps.
Kind of. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Why he kind of followed in my footsteps.
But also now, you grew up in the Scotlandville, so you know the history, you know so much about the community, and you've been always involved. Matter of fact, at 80 years old, you was thinking about running for state representative again.
I thought about it. I really thought about it. And I said, you know, I've gotten older. I know my way around this town. I know my way around the state. And I really thought about it, but I said, no, you know, let the youngsters run. And I looked at the President of the United States is older than I am. You know that. He's a few months older than I am.
A few months.
A few months older than I am. And at a certain time in life, you won't have to step aside and let a younger generation come along with new ideas and new perspectives. But to get to my story, and I got a long story to tell, and we talk about it.
That's why I've been calling you.
And I look at the situation, as Lyman said, I'm 80 years old today, and to get my start, I was the first one. Was a member of my siblings was 4 others, and I was the first one in my family, immediate family, born in a hospital. The 3 prior to me was born at home. So I was born in Charity Hospital in New Orleans in 1943, April of 1943.
You had to go to New Orleans at that time.
That's the time we had to go. That's the only place we could go at the time.
Although you lived in Baton Rouge,
I lived in Scotland. I lived in the capital, but we had to go.
Hold on. Now you making sure that I understand. You didn't live in Baton Rouge.
I lived in Scotland. Baton Rouge city limits was the airline highway, 300 feet. They always told me north of airline highway. Scotland was north of that. Southern University moved here, like I say, in 1914. They used to be located in New Orleans, but they moved to Scotlandville because it was the largest concentration of blacks in Louisiana.
Scotlandville was.
So that's why Southern University moved up there. He was on prime property in New Orleans. So they said, well, let's move him to Scotlandville. Back then, you know, in 1914, segregation was rampant everywhere.
But I remember the story that Julie Bradford Moore shared when she started talking about Scotlandville back in the days, and she said, well, you know, because I used to always hear the name when I came to Baton Rouge, on the bluff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so we always relate the word on the bluff with the river, Mississippi River. That's the bluff, you know. But then she shared how the people that Southern University was a plantation, just like LSU was a plantation, and Southern University, the people that owned Southern University name was Scott Bluff, the Scott Bluff, and that was interesting. They learned that.
If you know, Southern University has a bluff behind it, and that's been a river, Mississippi River going south. It is the highest bluff between Baton Rouge and Natchez, Mississippi. It is the bluff behind Southern.
Mm-hmm.
So it was known as Southern University on the bluff, because there is the highest bluff on the Mississippi.
Yeah, but I didn't know it was owned by the bluff. So
Yeah,
I guess that's what that was.
It was, and you know, my coming up, I heard my grandparents and parents talk about Southern University, and it was part of a plantation, and because the property over in West Baton Rouge Parish, it extended over in East Baton Rouge Parish, today's lines, and it was part of the property out of West Baton Rouge Parish, but it had a lot of plantations. West Baton Rouge Parish was heavy with plantations.
Oh yeah. Plantation was all on the Mississippi River.
Right. Matter of fact, my parents on my mother's side was come off a plantation in West Baton Rouge Parish, off of Alma Plantation.
Oh, okay. Now who was that again?
My mother's side of the family.
Okay, yeah. They grew sugar cane or cotton back then?
It was cotton back then. I assume they grew sugar cane, because sugar cane is a major industry in the state. It's a major area in West Baton Rouge Parish.
Well, I guess when I first came to Baton Rouge, there was a lot of cotton fields, because, you know, this certain time of year you see cotton all on the side of the road back then. And I remember they had a lot of cotton fields from the back part of Port Allen going towards New Roads.
Right, but all that was farm area. All that was farm area, and all that was noted as a Chapel Basin, everything between the Mississippi River and the Chapel River. It's just kind of a basin, just like today New Orleans has always been considered a basin.
Now you were saying that you was the youngest of 4 or 5?
5. No, I was not the youngest.
You was the one born in the hospital.
Right, I'm the first. I'm the 4th child,
Okay.
but I was the first one born in the hospital.
Now give me some. What was the name? Your mom, dad, your sister, and brother. What their name?
Well, my father was named John Honore. My mother was a Donaldson. She was Rebecca Honore.
Now, so the Honore's out of
Punker P. Parish.
Punker P. Parish.
Punker P. Parish.
Rougon area.
He put Bachelor Morgan.
Okay. Then.
But that's where my dad was from. He come from a family of 19.
So you came to General Honore?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Our great-grandfathers were brothers.
Oh, close related. Okay.
Well, okay, you kind of call it close, I see.
Right, okay. Kind of close.
But, and I know General Honore real well. You know, I had an opportunity to meet him, and he was very active around the legislature when I served in the legislature. So I served.
Environmental, he fought for environmental.
Right.
Still fighting.
He's still fighting for it.
Yeah. Now, so your mom was a Donaldson, your dad Honore, and they end up in the Scotlandville area.
Right.
How they end up in Scotlandville?
Well, my mother was born in a little place just north of Baton Rouge called Irene. That's up to 61, US 61. There was just a little road sign on the street now, and I think it's still listed up there as Irene, Louisiana.
I've seen it many times, but can't tell you where it's at.
It's north on US 61.
So now she grew up in a little town. Her and your dad, they moved to the Scotlandville. Y'all had 4 siblings. I mean, 5.
It was 5. It was 5 kids.
What was their names?
My older sister was Marie. Then I had.
She no longer with us?
No, I'm the only one left. You know, that's a strange feeling. Lyman, I'm the only one out of 5 left. You don't have any siblings to call and talk to, and I've outlived them all. So I'm the last, but I'm not the one that the oldest ones. I had 2 others that passed. One was 89 and one was 83.
That's a long life.
So, if I could surpass them, I'd be doing fine.
You'd be doing great. But I think you've been in great health for a long time.
My mother lived to age 90, and my grandmother lived to 99.
Ooh, like the old folks say, y'all long livers.
We long livers. We long livers.
Y'all long livers.
But when I was born in New Orleans, my mother had to go to New Orleans and stay with some family members to wait my arrival. And immediately, I guess, after my arrival, she brought me back to Scotlandville to Avenue A, which is right at the back gates of Southern University.
I live right on the backyard.
Right, it's at the back. And my family bought some property on Avenue A, and they bought a house, which was one of the 6 houses that was moved to the Avenue. They called it University Place because of Southern University. And they bought one of the houses, which was a 2-bedroom house, inside toilet, and running water.
Now, y'all had inside toilet. What year was that?
This was in about 1930, or the late 20s or the 30s. They bought this house, started paying on it, $20 a month, for a house and 11 lots. The lots was 30 by 120. They bought that property for $300.
$300.
Yeah, and you know, I used to hear my grandfather talking about when he bought this property. He had 5 kids. Each one of them got 2 lots apiece. He had 5 kids, and he used to always talk about they bought it from the widows. You know, I used to think that was an elderly white lady, the widow. But later in life, I found out that was a family that owned the property where they bought it. The Witter family out of Baton Rouge was a very prominent family who lived owned all that property on Jefferson Highway, and they owned all of the property across this railroad track that they eventually
in Scotlandville.
Yeah, in Scotlandville. Okay. So they would always talk about they bought from the Witters.
So you didn't know who they were?
I didn't know who that was. They didn't have any idea. I just thought it was the same little old lady.
Okay, then. Like a widow.
Yeah, like a widow.
Okay, then.
And I managed to see, and they never threw anything. I managed to see some of the payments they was paying on it was costing $20 a month for the house and property, you know, and vacant land. And it was something that in our lifetime they always told, you know, we didn't have any land. Black folks didn't own any land. They didn't call them black back then, they called them colored.
Yeah, colored.
So, at the time, they were paying $20 a month, and I saw some receipts, you know, after I became an adult, where they was paying $20 a month for the property. After coming back to Scotlandville, my mother bought me back. We built a home, and Dad built one when I was a baby, and 4-room home, wasn't 4 bedroom. Your bedroom was a bedroom at night, and it might have been a kitchen in the morning, or dining room in the morning, or no inside bathroom. And I remember we didn't have electricity in the avenues.
Oh,
so
you remember those days? I
remember those days. We didn't have electricity. We always had running water, and my grandparents had a home with it inside. Never had an outhouse. Had a bathroom in that house. There was 6 houses they built in that area, and they called it University Place. They built a little 1-room building across the street for my grandparents, and it was a school for the kids in that area to go to. The houses were prefab houses, we called it today. That was sold by Sears and Roebuck.
They had prefab houses back then?
They had prefab houses. They bought the house, they brought it up here on the train, you know, Kansas City Southern Railroad, run close by Southern is behind the railroad track.
Right.
And put that house together in like a puzzle. And the house, the family, first cousin, they just tore that house down. It was still in pretty good shape, but it was a family first cousin who all of them live out of the state of Louisiana, so they decided they wouldn't put any more money on it. They tore it down.
The house stood for
until 3-4 years ago. Yeah. No, more than that, since the 20s.
Oh.
And they tore it down about 5 years ago, saying that they didn't want to have anything else to do with it. They all adults, all living out of the state of Louisiana.
They ain't coming back.
No, they're not coming back. But I was fortunate enough in my young career to start purchasing some of the property that my family bought. And the family still own that property that they bought.
Behind Southern University.
Right.
You still got family property back.
Right. We still have family property there.
Okay.
So, getting back to
So y'all was taught to value land.
way back. And, we came to Scotlandville. My mama brought me back home to Scotlandville. And I remember when the first utility pole was installed across the track, as the avenues they call it. Back in the field at one time.
You call it back in the field.
Back in the field, because there wasn't any roads through there. And we lived on the first street, but it wasn't in the street, no gravel, no nothing,
So it was just a field. You walking through grass.
We was walking through grass.
Or whatever.
Right. And so, I look at back when I got ready to go to elementary school, Scotlandville only had 2 schools, elementary school. One was at Southern University, that was a laboratory school, and South Scotlandville Elementary, which is located on Stilt Street today, the building where it was.
Where's Stilt Street at?
It's in Scotlandville.
So,
It's just north of US 61 and LA 19.
I didn't know. What's the name of it was again?
It was South Scotlandville.
South Scotlandville Elementary.
South Scotlandville Elementary.
Right.
And I remember my first day going to school, we had to walk to school. There wasn't no school bus.
No matter how far you leave.
Right. We had to walk to school, and my first day, and it was a half-a-day school for us. The northern part of Scotlandville, all of us went to South Scotlandville, and we went in, and you had to either go in the morning or in the afternoon, but it was a half-a-day school. First grade was half a day.
Half-a-day school.
Half-a-day school. I started elementary school in 19.
Well, because there were so many students in this area?
No, the people started moving in. People started moving in from St. Francisville and Woodville, Mississippi, and coming to, we had a university here, and they felt a job was here, and Standard Oil was here, and they started looking for jobs, and started moving into Baton Rouge. Well, they started moving into Scotlandville, and I'm talking about black people that back during that time started moving to Scotlandville.
Everybody was looking for a better life.
For a better life. So my first grade was a half-a-day school at South Scotlandville. But during that time, while I was in elementary school, first grade, they started building North Scotlandville Elementary, which was located on Rosenwald Road. It was a 2-story school, brand new block building, inside bathrooms and a gymnasium.
Oh, it's big time now.
Oh, it was big time.
So you said South Scotlandville did not have inside bathroom?
No, they did not have inside bathroom when I went to school there.
They built all the bathrooms like
All of them was outhouses.
they were outhouses.
Yeah, it was outhouses.
Okay.
And we remember, we talked about 1949.
Okay.
6 years old, and Scotlandville, North Scotlandville, had inside bathrooms, had a gymnasium for kids, cafeteria they built on it. And at South Scotlandville, we had to carry our own food, carry a bag of food.
So you bring a sandwich every day?
Sandwich every day.
Yeah, okay.
And I remember the first day I went to school, my sister told me, said, I looked up and you was coming down the railroad track, coming home. You didn't spend the first day in elementary school.
But you don't remember that, do you?
Yes, I remember. I remember the color clothes I had on. I had on blue pants and a yellow shirt.
Now, you remember the first day of school,
Right.
that you went to school and you left and went back home.
The first day I walked from South Scotlandville Elementary.
You walked on your own?
Well, yeah, I walked on my own, coming down the railroad track.
So your mom didn't even come with you the first
No, not the first day. They took me to school, but it was half a day of school. It was the middle of the day before I started.
Right.
So I got there, and the other kids were leaving to go home, and I just turned around and come home too. And
So everybody else was leaving.
everybody else, the morning classes were going home.
But you didn't know anything.
I didn't know any different.
Oh,
I
okay.
just come on home too. So, and when they built North Scotlandville, and we transferred up to North Scotlandville, it was closer to my house, and we started walking to school at North Scotlandville. I went to North Scotlandville in second grade, and we started spending a full day at school. And I I can remember all my teachers in elementary school, you know, where the classroom was situated.
The teachers had that big of impact on you that you.
I remember the teachers, all of them, and who I had in first grade, second grade, third grade, on through sixth grade. When I graduated from North Scotlandville, when I went to Scotlandville Junior Senior High School, which was located on Elm Grove. And then they started providing a bus for us and ride out of the avenues, out of the field, as they call it. But we had to walk out the scenic highway to catch the bus.
It was still a long walk, didn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't a long walk, but it was out to the scenic highway, and you had to take off your shoes and go to that built a service station there on the corner of Scenic Highway and Scoop Street. So you had to go out there and wash your feet off and all that and put your shoes on to get on the bus.
So if it's cold, you still walk without no shoes?
You had to walk with some old shoes you could if it was muddy. If it was muddy, you had to walk with some shoes that you could take off and leave there at the service station.
In Louisiana, it's always muddy.
It was always muddy. And another example of me in my memory is when I was in the late 40s, they notified all of us how they just called up. They didn't call because we didn't have telephones. They notified everybody to come to this service station that Standard Oil had built on the corner of Scenic Highway, which is US 621, and Scoop Street, and to come in the state because a storm was coming. And that was the only block building, cinder block building in our community. And I remember everybody who lived in the avenues all huddled up at that building one night, waiting until the storm passed through. Whether it was a hurricane or what, but everybody went to that building that night, and it was big enough to house them. Everybody who lived there.
What's called a service station.
Yeah,
back then. It was that big, it could house.
Well, it wasn't that many people.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't that many people.
So what you call back in the field, that was only a small family of people.
A small family of people. And the service station had the supply room. It was just a little two-brick service station where you could get your oil change, and an area, one stall where you could have your car or wash your car. Because, remember, we didn't have concrete anyway. It was all dirt and mud. There wasn't no gravel. And
but the building was built out of cinder blocks.
The building was built out of cinder blocks, so we had to go there in the late 40s because a storm was coming.
You remember what storm it was?
It was. I assume today it was a hurricane or something. I don't remember the name. It didn't have names that time. They just said the
storm coming.
And we all huddled in there for
the storm coming. So you didn't know.
See, I tell the storm passed through. Then we walk back home. You could see the service station from our house.
But did the storm do much damage?
No, it didn't do much damage. It didn't have a name in the late 40s, but everybody who lived across that track and in the neighborhood, and it wasn't a big neighborhood, was housed in that building. That was the only cinder block building we had in the area.
Now, Southern University really was like, could you walk straight through the fields and get there?
No. Southern University was a farm area. They did all their farming there. It was a pathway that you could walk to Southern from the field. It was a pathway. Wasn't no road or anything. Matter of fact, they didn't have any streets back there. We lived on the street. It was all dirt pathways, no gravel, no nothing. You had to, if your parents had a vehicle, they had to leave it parked on the other side of the railroad track to come home because we didn't have the railroad track wasn't designed for an automobile to cross it. Every time we crossed it, knocked the muffler.
So the time that if you did drive an automobile, you had to leave it on the other side of the track?
On the other side of the track, and it would tear the mufflers off or something if you drove through. So the men in that area got together and we hauled dirt. I was a kid out there working with them, hauling dirt to make a ramp up to and from the railroad tracks so they could drive the vehicle across.
But at that time, vehicles was just, there was not too many families with vehicles.
There wasn't many families. I can remember when my daddy, I was sitting in my grandparents' home in the back room and I saw a red truck coming down the street and it turned up in our driveway. Oh man, I run out of the back of that house and we got a red truck, bright red, 1954 pickup truck.
Not a candy apple red.
Oh, candy apple red, a chip on the floor.
Y'all moved on up.
Oh, had we moved up, we had to drive. My daddy had his name painted on the doors of the truck. The truck belonged to John Honore, and he had Scotlandville.
He put all that on the truck?
He put all of that on the truck. And that was the thing back then. People put their names on the side of the truck.
Look, that make more sense than what people do now. They put other people's name on the truck.
Right,
Coca-Cola. You know, how you gonna put somebody else's name on your truck?
But he had his name painted on the side of his truck, and it was the first vehicle that we owned, because he used to work construction and he used to come home in the company vehicle sometimes. And he drove a dump truck and for one of these big construction companies, building roads and what have you. And as he began to get a little older, he got him a job at a plant here, Copalma. He worked there 20 years or so before he passed.
And it was right down the street from where y'all lived.
Right. It was out on scenic, but at that time, and I tried it when after I got out of the military, that go to work at Copalma, and they said they wasn't hiring any family members at the time, so I didn't get a job at Copalma because of my daddy worked there.
So you couldn't even get a job.
I couldn't even get a job there.
Now you got to go back to where you moved from South Scotlandville Elementary to North Scotlandville Elementary on Rosenwald.
On Rosenwald.
Rosenwald over there. And now you matriculated through there. Now all your siblings was going there too?
No. My siblings wasn't going there. The siblings it was 8 years between the third child and me. It was 8 years. Okay. And they was in high school during that time. And then I had a sister that was behind me, 2 years behind me. So she went to North Scotlandville. But we used to walk to school. And I'll tell you an interesting story. We got to North Scotlandville. I was there in second grade. And when I got in third grade, my teacher it's a new school. She wanted to form a little school crossing guard. And so when I was third grade, I joined the school crossing guard. And here's the reason why I joined. The two white sheriff deputies, and a preacher come to my house when I was in third grade. And they got out of the car, the preacher walked up, my sister was standing there, and he said, the police said, well, we come out here because this man here say this boy here was breaking windows out of his church. I say, no, I was throwing the rocks. But I was throwing through the hole that was already there. So,
well, you was that good, huh?
Yeah, the preacher standing there talking to her, and the police, the two deputies, I was the one that was working outside the city limits. With sheriff deputies handled everything outside the city limits. And it looked impressive to me, and I just stood there, and they said, well, don't do it no more. And I said, yes, sir. And about 2 days later, I was walking to school. I walked to school, and it was cold. And the preacher was standing out in front of that church. And he stopped me, and I could see the pistol hanging out of his pocket. And he started cursing me. He said, yeah.
The preacher?
The preacher did. And he said, yeah, I said, you the boy I can tell by that red cap you wear. That was breaking windows out of my church, and if I catch you throwing it again, I'm going to shoot you. I saw a pistol hanging out of his pocket. From that day forward, I haven't worn red hats, caps. I've never had an inkling to wear red caps.
You want to be identified?
I didn't want to be identified like that.
He told you that story.
He told me that's how he knew who I was.
Okay.
But I quit wearing that red cap when I got by his church. When he could spot me, I didn't have no cap on when I passed that church.
So he taught you early, huh?
He taught me early. Okay. So I joined the school crossing guard. The teacher that was, because we had to walk out to Scenic Highway on Rosenwald, two of us to hold a school patrol flag. They give us a little badge and a belt run across our chest and everything. Right. So I walked out to the Rosenwald and used to hold the flag out. Scenic Highway was 2 lanes back then, to stop the traffic so the kids could cross it coming from school. And the other person went to Highway 19, that we call it Old Baker Road, to stop the traffic on Highway 19. So it was a third grade teacher, Miss Wright, promoted me to sergeant. She gave me a promotion.
That's big time.
Oh, we had a little red badge she gave us, so you could put on
He go that red again.
yeah, they put me a red badge on, and I did that for the next year. You know, I was the sergeant there. And she said, well, I'm gonna make you the captain. She gave me a blue badge. Oh man, I was so proud of that badge. I thought I was a real police. And we didn't have television, we didn't have electricity back then.
The real police.
You know, but two had come to my house, and it was real impressive. It was real impressive. So she made me the captain of the school patrol. So I had a blue badge. I went to school one morning with my jacket on and my badge pinned inside of it, and laid my jacket down in the gym to play basketball, where the badge could be seen. And after the basketball game was over and I went to get my jacket, my badge was gone. I got until this day to find my badge. Somebody took my badge out of my jacket.
You want to show? You want to show it off?
I wanted to show my badge off.
But they took it.
Yeah, they took my badge.
They wanted to show it off too.
All I had was school patrol on it, but it was blue. It had captain on it.
That was the last time I see it.
That's the last time I was in elementary school and I saw that badge.
So your little feeling was hurt, didn't it?
Yeah, it was hurting. And then I used to ride to the school, to the bank with the principal, because I was a pretty good sized kid at the time, to take the deposit every day, you know, from the cafeteria. Everything was cash and coins. That wasn't no dollar bills, it was just coins. And I'd walk with her every day to go to the bank so I could take the coins in for her, you know.
Okay.
And then after school, we didn't have high school at the time. When I graduated from high school, I was a little star around there in the program they had at school in North Scotlandville. And I was a little started, went on the stage with them, and I was active in elementary school. So in 1955, when I graduated from North Scotlandville, we went to Scotlandville. Scotlandville wasn't a complete high school at the time, it was junior senior high. 56 was the first graduating senior class at Scotlandville. Okay. And I went there in 55, so I knew most of the people who graduated in 66. And so I was a good student in the elementary school, and then went to junior high, was making good grades. And after my oldest brother joined the Air Force after high school, he started Southern and then he joined the Air Force in 1949 to see a better life. He was working at Chris store downtown Baton Rouge, and he joined the Air Force in 1949.
So back then you could work at Chris, but you couldn't go sit there and eat.
No, you couldn't sit there and eat.
But you could shop there too. Then.
Yeah, you could shop. Couldn't play with the toys or anything, but that was the only place that had toys in Baton Rouge that we could go see. You caught the bus and rode up to Baton Rouge, and then you could walk to Chris. You could look at the toy and dream about what you would get for Christmas from Santa Claus, And
but you could not touch anything.
No, you couldn't touch anything.
But you could work there.
Right.
You could work there. You can come shop there, but you could not eat at the counter.
No, you could not.
So the cooks was black too then?
All the cooks was black, yeah. But you could not sit at the counter, and that's when the demonstration from Southern University went down there in the 50s, 56, 57, and all that. So he went in the Air Force. So I was in high school, first class in Scotlandville, graduated in 1956, and I was passed to the 8th grade. When I got to 11th grade, I just felt I could do better. My brother was in the military, and he had made some rank. He'd come home in his uniform, his Air Force uniform.
You like the women. He was impressed with the uniform.
Yeah, and he was just going places. He'd made stripes. He was a sergeant, and but he used to tell me, say, Dalton, when I went in service, I was stationed in Lackland Air Force Base, and the white airmen would swim in the pool, and we had to swim behind them in the pool, the blacks, colored as we was referred to back then. And once we swim, they drained the pool and put fresh water in before the whites swim in the pool again.
On a regular basis.
On a regular basis, yeah. This was in San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base.
Now, now, when did you enter into the military then?
Well, after 11th grade, I said, well, I used to think about him. He'd sent pictures back. My brother was very smart and intelligent.
What was his name?
Honore.
Arthur, okay.
And they had graded him as being a genius when he was in college. He started college. And he moved up the ladder in the Air Force. He moved up the ladder. He was a munition that was loading the plane with bombs and weapons and stuff. And he sent pictures back here from Africa. He got stationed in Africa. And he was a very intelligent young man. And I said, I could do this, because I want to go places. So after I finished 11th grade, I went and joined the Air Force.
Now, how'd you do that? You went and talked to your mom and dad first?
Yeah, they had to sign for me. I was 17 years old. I dropped out of high school.
Now, you dropped out of high school.
I completed 11th grade. And my parents had to sign for me to go. Went and took the test and passed the test to go in the service. And I was just, dream about going in the military, and he was doing good, and I said I could go places. So I took the test, joined the Air Force, joined the Air Force, passed it and everything. And they said, well, you got to go to New Orleans to be inducted into the military, and you got to go the night before, and then you go through your exams and all of that. But when there was 4 or 5 of us, blacks who had gone to the custom house in New Orleans to join the military, we had to stay in a private home. We couldn't stay in hotels or anything. Blacks couldn't do that at the time. It's 1960.
1960.
1960, I joined the military, joined the Air Force. And so when we stayed in the house, the next day we met, and the white guys would stay at the hotels and whatever. Joined the military, signed up for it and everything. And that night, they flew us to San Antonio, Texas. That's Lackland Air Force Base. The same base my brother had gone through. And this was 1960. And they assembled, there was 4 other guys from Baton Rouge in that group with me. They assembled all us the next day and said, this is going to be the group that y'all in, the squadron, I guess you call it.
Company?
Well, they called it a squadron at the time, and we all got housed in a barracks down in San Antonio. So they lined us up according to height and all of that, and I was kind of a tall boy, 163 pounds, $63 a month was my check.
$63
a month, right? And so.
That was a lot of money back then.
That was. You was eating and sleeping free, and you had $63 in your pocket. But it looked like a lot of money, but that was all it was paying to a brand new recruit.
For your life was worth $63 a month.
$63 a month. And so we started marching. And the first thing they called out, anybody had any ROTC, and so they put the guys who had some ROTC as the leaders in each squad with four different lines. We got in to march behind each other, and so I used to go to Southern, go up at the campus at Southern, and Southern had an ROTC program. Used to watch the soldiers march and all of that, and I caught on. I said, no, I haven't been to college, but he said, you marching good, you're marching well. I'm gonna move you up to the front of the line. So through my basic training, I was in the front of the line with the guys who had some college experience in marching, just keeping in time, keeping in step.
And you got this from just watching?
Right.
ROTC?
ROTC at Southern.
Not participating, you just
No, I was a high school dropout. So I went into service after 11th grade. I didn't complete high school from the high school. So after the class, I got, they was getting ready to promote after doing your training. Everybody got a stripe. So everybody got a stripe, and when they got to me, they told me, well, you don't have a high school education. We can't promote you. Right behind me, the guy following me was a white guy from Texas. I remember his name. And they promoted him. And he told me, I don't have a high school education. But right then, it struck me as he white and I'm black.
Neither one had a high school education.
And neither one of us had a high school education.
And you outperforming him, producing.
Right.
But he still got the.
He got the first strike. So I was selected as one of the 25 members who made good enough grades to go to tech school, which was to go in the field that they was sending you in, which was aircraft refueling. So after San Antonio, I got transferred to Amarillo Air Force Base in Amarillo, Texas for a 12-week training program. And if your grades wasn't high enough, you just went to another base and do OJT, which was on-the-job training. So I went to a technical school, how to refuel aircraft and how to drive 18-wheelers to back into an aircraft with the truck and refuel. And the course was 12 weeks. So they promoted me when after high school education. While I was at Lackland, they didn't promote me. When I got to Amarillo, I slipped off and went to the library and prepared myself to take the GED. So I took the GED and passed the GED.
You just took the GED
and passed the GED
without doing any kind of studying.
No, I couldn't study. I just had to pass the GED. I was a pretty good student in high school.
Okay,
and passed the GED, and I was only one in my class, only black in the class, about 25 soldiers, and they stationed me in Georgia, Albany, Georgia, which was a strategic air command base. And at that base, we was on higher alert because of the Cuban situation in 1960-61. And we had 14 KC-135, which was the tanker plane who carried the fuel. And we had 28 B-52s stationed on that base. It was a big base, big strategic air command base. And when I got there, I had the high school education and I made one strike. So they put me in another school, another program, where my skill level went from a 3 to a 5. So by this time, I had a high school education, my skill level was a 5, I was an airman first class, and then I got promoted to airman second class, which gave me another strike. So, and I got a letter I want you to read that I sent off to the VA trying to get a disability.
Trying to get disability.
Trying to get disability. So here's what happened. While I was in service, I twisted my knee, my left knee, and I went to the hospital while I was in service at the VA hospital. The military hospital on base. So I started getting a pushback. I didn't finish high school, got promoted twice, and I started taking a course from Florida State University because a lady would come up, one of the instructors would come up to the base once a week to teach a class, and I enrolled in that.
But you was in Georgia.
In Georgia.
With somebody coming from Florida.
From Florida, Florida State University. I was in southern Georgia now.
Okay.
There was a little town named Albany, Georgia. It was a big strategic air command base there. We had a couple thousand soldiers, and they had a Marine base there at that time. So when I started the college course, I said, well, and the Air Force at the time was pressing people to go to school, get educated. They wanted an educated Air Force. And I was taking, I'm moving ahead, I thought. And then I started getting feedback from the my troops running, because there wasn't any blacks hardly on that base. And we had that many people there, and we only had one black first lieutenant officer on the whole base. One black first lieutenant, and he was a navigator on the plane. So I said, that's strange. It just was strange. We had very little sergeants on that base, mostly white people. When I got to that base in December of 1960, you could see the base, how segregated it was, because they had the old black soldiers before the president, who signed an order to integrate service in 1948, before it was all segregated. You could see where the black soldiers lived on the base, and you could see where the white soldiers lived. Totally different structures. The white soldiers had cinder block buildings and what have you. But black soldiers had wood frame old huts, old barracks they call it. You know, no, just a partition and some between the wall, you know, the soldiers where they slept.
But y'all fighting for the same cause.
Fighting for the same cause. Fighting for the same cause. So, then we started having pushback. I started having pushback while I was in service. I said, well, you want to go to school? I said, well, can I apply to be, I got my high school education now and started a course in college. I want to apply and see can I go to OCS or one of the schools so I could be an officer. I want to be a leader. And because we only had one black officer on the base.
You paying attention to this?
One black first lieutenant named Jen Wright out of Ohio.
You pretty dang.
And because I was a pretty good sized guy and picking up a little weight. And we had a 24-hour operation and we slept on the flight line. Only 2 people worked in that area I was in was black. That was refueling aircraft. And that's high security section because it was a high security base. Had a top security clearance and all of that to work in that area. So when I started getting pushback from my company that I was in, I said, well, maybe I can get me a job. They told me just no to take the test and everything to go to further my education in school, to become an officer or something. So I said, well, maybe I can get me a job on the air refueling, because we had 14 KC-135 stationed on that base too. And that's where the guy in the plane, and he refueled the B-52s and the other planes that pull up behind him. You doing it from the air then. And they told me no. I said, well, don't. So I kept getting pushback. So on a Sunday afternoon, I called the base commander. And I know the chain of command, you know, you go to sergeant to lieutenant to captain to major and all the way up the ladder. I called the base commander at his house and talked to him and explained my situation. I said, I'm just catching hell out of my co-workers. I said, what I'm trying to do and what have you is further my education. The Air Force is asking people to further their education. They want a smart Air Force, smart company. So he said, I suggest you go talk to the priest. I'm a Catholic. I can suggest you go talk to the priest. And I'm going to set you up an appointment with the priest. So he did, base commander. And so I went to talk to the priest. When you was in the military as a medical doctor or a priest, you went in as a captain. And it was a young white priest. He was a captain. He sat down and interviewed me one day, and I told him my history and all of that. And he said, well, come back and talk to me again. I want to schedule you to come back. And in the meantime, he pulled my records and saw why I gotten promoted and what have you. And then my commander told me, he said, well, the priest, this is his letter. He said he's recommended that you be honorably discharged from service and not to return to the Air Force. You could go on in the other branches. And but he said that's his recommendation. I said, well, I want to talk to him twice. He said, well, yeah. I said, well, in the meantime, when I was at tech school in Amarillo, I talked to one of the white guys from Indiana. He was right next to me. We were taking training and what have you. He said, man, I'll be so glad when 6 months up so I can go back home. I said, go back home? How you can go back home? He said, well, I'm in the National Guard. I said, National Guard? Well, blacks couldn't join the National Guard in Louisiana back in the 60s.
Oh, you could not join?
We could not join. We could not join the National Guard. So we had to sign up for the full 4-year term. And so when the base commander told me to see the priest, I said, maybe he'll help me, kind of further my education and know what I want to do and, be an aggressive young guy. So he recommended I be honorably discharged because I was in there to go to school and wrote a letter to that effect. This is a freeloader. I'm a boy, 18 years old now, fighting for the country, I guess, and fighting to better myself, who come into service to get an education. He's of no service to the Air Force, and he got the wrong idea why he come in here to get an education, and he was no benefit to the service. I said, okay, well, give me the honorable discharge. And in the meantime, I'd already been to the hospital on my knee. So I was discharged in November 1961. Come out and went to the hospital in New Orleans, to the VA hospital in 62. That's the end of the year. And when I got discharged in 62, I went to the hospital. And they said, well, you're going to get a 10% disability for the knee injury. We're going to get 10% disability for the knee injury. So when I got out of service, I went to the Air Force recruiter here. And the guy who's doing the recruiting for the Air Force and doing the paperwork, he said, this is an Italian guy. He said, Dalton, this is the worst discharge I've seen them give me. They didn't give you a raw deal. Give you honorable discharge, but they say you couldn't come back to the Air Force. I said, well, that's what I wanted to be in. He said, well, I'm going to help you change this. So he said, I'm going to write a letter to the Air Force and tell them you possess all the qualities they was looking for. But the priest had written down, he was a freeloader coming to service to go to school. The priest said that, white priest. And while we're on that topic, I still go to the Catholic Church. My kids are Catholic. My grandkids are Catholic. I don't take a communion today for that reason. Because here's a person you supposedly have gone to. And we got a good priest at our church now. I like him as a person. But every time I see him, I think about that priest when I was a boy. So he was nothing but a freeloader. Nothing but a freeloader.
He wrote that in the paper.
I got the paperwork to show. I got my Air Force records. She wrote that in the letter and sent it to the base commander.
In other words, you're supposed to go to the military to take advantage of opportunities, right?
That's why I went.
And that's why you went.
Right.
But that's he considered that freeload. Because you wanted to move yourself into a better position.
Right.
But so as a black man, you freeload. You ain't supposed to be in no better position.
He wrote it down. He didn't just say that. He put it in writing. Signed his name to it. Signed his name to it. And I got a copy of that letter.
So now, the other guy that wrote a letter on your behalf, the Italian guy.
Right. He wrote a letter to me for my discharge. He said, this ain't fair. This is not fair.
Because you didn't really pay attention to what the letter was saying.
Right. I didn't have a letter from what the priest at the time, so I got a copy of my letter, my file. And he said, they give you a rotten deal. So he wrote a letter. When I got out, I went to him. He said, I've never seen him do nobody like this. I said, okay. But at 17, when I got denied a promotion because I didn't have a high school education, there's two things stuck in my mind. Education would not stop me from getting a job. And I'm going to fight for equality till I'm dead. Until I'm dead. I took that oath myself. I'm going to fight until I'm dead.
That's what you've been
doing. And that's all I've ever done. I don't want nothing extra. I don't want you to give me nothing. I'm going to fight for equality until I'm dead. I just want to have the same opportunity. For all. For
yourself and your children.
And everybody. I just want the same opportunity as the next fellow.
So that branded something in your mind.
It branded something in my mind since I was 17. When I got denied a promotion because of the color of my skin.
Then when you got a high school degree and asking for other opportunities.
Then they said I was a freeloader. I just come into service to go to school. That's what the priest wrote down. He wrote in a letter, and I got that information. I got a letter where he signed it and everything. And I'm only 17, 18 years old by that time. 18 years old. So when I come home, the Italian guy, and we always thought it was white, but it was Italian, you know, all in the names, in the A, and E, and the vowels or something, you know, you just knew who they were. Same thing about the grocery store owners in Scotland, it was all Italians. They wasn't white, but we classed them as white, but some of those Italians had as much hell out here as black folks.
Okay.
In this particular community, in Baton Rouge. So he sent that off and they denied it. They'll change the thing where I could go back in the military. I mean, the Air Force. So I started college, and started Southern in 1962. My diploma read Scotlandville High School, class of 1961. It came from the state, and they sent all the information to the state, and my diploma read, with my class. My class graduated from Scotlandville in 1961.
They still give you a degree.
A diploma from Scotlandville.
From
Scotlandville High, 1961. That was my class. I only missed 12th grade now.
All right.
But I took the GED.
And that was it, all you needed.
That was all I needed. And at the time, I didn't know nothing about no GED and stuff like that. But when I went in the service and they told me, well, you can get your GED, and I went and passed the GED and got my high school diploma from Scotlandville, class of 61. And so I come back and started Southern in 1962. January 62, I started Southern University. My brother, who had gone to California, my younger brother, to Los Angeles, he had gone to Southern. He didn't finish, and his wife had finished college at Southern. So he came back in 62, home, and a convertible car, and doing well in California. So I said,
there you go again.
yeah, I said, I'm gonna go back with you to California. Just dropped out of school.
That's Arthur?
No, that's Albert.
It's
Albert had the second brother.
Okay.
So got in the car with him and his wife and his child, and went on back to.
Hold on. So did you ever start college?
Yeah, I was in college in '62. I just dropped out of school and went on to California.
Okay. What part of California was it?
Compton.
Compton,
California. Yeah.
What was Compton like back then?
It was all right time. You never heard much of Compton. It was right on the outskirts of Los Angeles, and it was just a different style out there. People knew each other, and you had a convertible. You could drive with the top down, and you could go where you wanted to different establishments.
So it was not like the portrayal of gangsters and drugs and pimping and all this.
No, not in 1962.
So it was a great place to be for us.
For us, yeah, and that's why we went. That's why black folks left the South and went to California to get a better life. And we talking about black folks leaving this area. When I was coming up, I heard I would hear the old people talk. Well, she left here and she gone off and she not coming back, or he not coming back, because they passing when in these other cities, and they don't want to think about Baton Rouge or Louisiana. So anyway, I went to California, got a job in Beverly Hills, and in '62, and at the bank, at one of the banks. It was a bank on 3 corners out there, and I got a job at one of them in Beverly Hills.
You doing what?
I wore a necktie to work, which was really impressive back then. I wore a necktie to work. I was a young boy, 21 years old, and ordering bank supplies. I would make my passes through the bank, pick up all the mail off the desk, and send them out, get them ready for the mailman to pick up in the afternoon, and order supplies for the bank, envelopes, paper, and blotters, everything they needed for office supplies. And I had a job doing that, and you didn't see. I was riding the bus to the job in Beverly Hills. Good job, necktie on, but my first paycheck was $49.97. I said, I can't make it off of this. And I'm living with my brother now.
$50 a week plus.
No, that was a week. I brought home $49.97. It wasn't $50.
You know, $49.97. Let's round it out to $50.
Yeah.
So you're making $50 a week.
Right.
$200 a month. That's $200 a month.
And I looked at that check. I said, I can't. And I was a single man there. I said, well, I'm gonna save me enough money to go. But bus ticket cost me $54 back then. I bought me a 1-week Greyhound bus ticket, and I worked 3 or 4 weeks at the bank. And so I got me a bus ticket home, back to Baton Rouge, 1 way. Started school back at Southern that June of '62.
So you was able to reason this out. This ain't gonna work yet.
Yeah, this time I went to school. Started in June '62, and I graduated from Southern in June of '66. I graduated from Southern University in June of '66.
So your other brothers and sisters went to Southern University?
They all went to Southern University, but none of them graduated.
Oh, you was the only one graduated.
I was the only one graduated from college, the only one to drop out of high school, the only one didn't go to Southern Lab.
Okay.
So that's, I just was different, 'cause, I wanted to be with the boys.
You took a different path.
I took a little different path.
Okay.
And now they all were successful in life. But I just took a little different path. I went to Scotlandville. And when I come out of, the military, I started school. I told you I'd gone to California, come back, and got back in Southern in June of '62. August of '66, I graduated. But while I was in school, while I was in college, in '63, January 1st of '63, I met my intended wife. She was in high school with me. I knew her, but I never said nothing that way to her. And when after we talked for a while, we found out we was in first grade together because she went to South Scotland the same hours I was. We had the same teacher in the afternoon, Miss Harrison, and she was in that class too. But I was a little boy, but anyway, at 7th grade, we went back to Scotland Junior Senior High School, and I knew her from then. Well, in January 1st of 1963, I went to a party and started talking to her in '63, and knew her family, knew the family, and I knew her sister. She had one sister and a brother. While I was in service, her brother got a scholarship to Morehouse when he was 16 years old, so he left Scotlandville and went to Morehouse.
Back then?
Yeah, he got a scholarship to Morehouse. And her sister graduated with her in '61. She went to...
What was her sister's name?
Camille Gray.
What was her brother's name?
James Gray.
Oh, James. The James Gray attorney in Baton Rouge now?
He was an attorney in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
He was an attorney in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, but he's in New Orleans.
Right, he's in New Orleans.
That's your former wife?
Former wife's brother.
Attorney James Gray.
Right, Attorney James Gray. He went to school at Harvard.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, my sister-in-law went to school at Indiana University.
I know James, but I had some legal problems.
Right.
He represented me.
All right. And then she, the one that finished at Indiana University, she came back to go to law school in LSU, Gamia. And Gamia and Burnett Johnson would be judge, Supreme Court judge.
Yeah.
She finally made it to the Supreme Court here. First black on the Supreme Court.
Black, right.
They finished college together. At LSU, the first female and first black finished LSU law school. And the dean of the law school at the end said that women had no business in law school nowhere. And then there were 2 black women. First women black to finish law school at LSU.
Honore and Johnson.
No, she was a great.
Gray.
Camille Gray.
Camille Gray.
She went on to be she married an attorney from Virginia. She moved to Virginia with him. And she went on to be the Commonwealth attorney for Surrey County, Virginia. And after she stayed there about 20 years as a Commonwealth attorney, which is a district attorney for East Baton Rouge Parish. East Baton Rouge Parish referred to the county attorneys as the district attorney. Virginia referred to them as Commonwealth attorneys in the elected position, just like it is in Louisiana. But the judges was appointed when Doug Wilder became governor, the first black governor elected in the United States. He appointed her as a judge in Virginia, kind of circuit judge of 4 or 5 different counties. And she retired. She's still living in Virginia, but she's a retired judge in Virginia. Burnett, her classmate here, retired from the Louisiana Supreme Court.
Just 2 years ago.
Yeah, just a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I got a picture somewhere with just she and Burnett was the only black students, only females in the class, the LSU first graduating class. And so we got a little history behind it.
That's a lot of history.
So my wife went to Southern. I started talking to her, and
what was her first name again?
Ethel
Ethel.
Gray. Everybody called her JoJo.
JoJo.
Everybody called her JoJo. we started talking on January 1st, 1962.
Man, how you remember that?
I remember all dates. I got good memory.
You remember you started talking to her on January 1st?
On January 1st,
New
we
Year.
had a party. I know everyone.
Oh yeah, okay, New Year, celebrate New Year's.
And
Okay.
her mama coming to the party to pick her and her sister up, take them home. And she gave me a phone number. And I started calling her, talked to her every day. We got married in 1964. And 1965, my daughter was born.
Desiree.
So we was 21 years old, and we got married. And I was driving back and forth. Both of us was in school.
Desiree, dad told your age.
Yeah. Desiree was born in 65.
She ain't gonna like that.
And anyway, so we moved in with my parents. You know, I've been in the military. My disability pay was $15 a month. I was a carpenter, and I was making a little money. I was in school, you know, and I had been a carpenter since I was 12 years old, going up with the construction company, putting prefab houses together, and I learned the trade.
But but then again, a lot of the honorees and parties, y'all, a lot of
All was on in construction
in
business.
construction.
All my daddy's brothers was in construction business. My daddy wasn't, he worked at the plant. So I enjoyed that trade. And just too old now to do it like I used to. I can't do it anymore.
Okay.
But anyway, we got married, and she moved in with me and my parents, and we had a pretty good sized house. I guess about 1,700 feet of living.
Okay, so you moved from off the avenues back then?
No, that's where we was living on the avenue.
In that prefab home?
No, one of the ones my daddy built when I was born, when I was as a baby.
Okay.
So her daddy and mother were both educators here, and her daddy was taught over in Port Allen at Corn High. He was an industrial arts teacher, and her mother taught at McKinley when I met her. And I got to be friends with them, and we started a good life together with them. So we got married. She moved in with me, and then my oldest sister, who had married a soldier, he was a sergeant in the army, and my mama told us that, well, she coming home, he coming back from Vietnam, and she gonna move her family home. They was living in Oklahoma then, because he was a sergeant in the army. And so we said, well, y'all might have to move, because I don't know where they're gonna stay when they come home. So we moved in with my in-laws. She and I, wasn't nobody at home but her mom and her daddy, and so we moved in with them.
But that was a good thing. The family would take you in,
Right.
Help you get situated.
But here's what happened. My dad and mama, I told you about the property on Avenue A.
Right.
My dad and mama give us a lot. It's one of those 60 by 120 lots, 60 feet wide, 120 feet deep. My daddy was an industrial arts teacher at Corn High in Port Allen, West Baton Rouge Parish. And he was a construction guy on the side, building houses during the summer full time, and he was building houses year round. He had his crews out there. So he said, I'm gonna go talk to the financial institution, which was First Federal. It was a new loan company for blacks that opened up in Scotland.
Right there on Scenic Highway?
Right on Scenic
On the corner of Scenic Highway?
Scenic and Harding
The
Boulevard.
Harding, right before you go over that hall.
Right.
Yeah.
He went there and talked to them, and he was going to want to build a house for us, line us up for a loan. At that time, I had gone to work at the sheriff's office, and I had a steady income. Signed it, he got us a loan for $18,000.
$18,000.
I was 22 years old. She was 22. For $18,000, and we built a triplex apartment.
So that's three.
That was 3. We moved in the first one, and we had one child, Desiree. And 3 years later, we had a second one. That was Dalton. And we had a 2-bedroom apartment. And right down Avenue A, right at the back of Southern. So we got the loan. The day I graduated from college, I moved into those apartments. I never rented, and we moved in our own. People were saying, well, you're too young, 22 years old to get in that kind of debt. That's $18,000 worth of debt. and I had a $350 a month job, but I was working on the side as a carpenter. So
But not just that, you can rent the other 2 units.
I rented the other 2 units, $75 a month. So that would take each, but I would pay the note. The note was $133 a month. So I got $150 off the rent.
So you living free.
I'm basically living free. And so in the meantime, I'm working at Southern. In 1963, September of '63, the first year I started dating my wife, we went to the high school jamboree at Memorial Stadium. We sitting down at Memorial Stadium, she, her sister, and I, on the north end, watching the games, high school football game. And who passes me but 3 black city police officers? Alfred Cummings, Joseph Stevenson, and Frank Milligan in uniform.
And they had just got the job.
They had just gotten the job. So I'm 20 years old then. So I looked at them, thought about my elementary school.
Cross and go, huh?
Now the first time I had seen a black guy in a police uniform.
Oh, that was big.
So yeah, that was big. That was big. So the next week, just in September of '63, the next week I go to the Baton Rouge City Police office, downtown, main building, colored water fountain here on the wall, white.
At the police station.
At the police station, when you walk in the door.
But you going to look for justice, huh?
Yeah. A colored water fountain on the wall, a white water cooler on next to it, with the sign, colored and white. I asked for an application. So they gave me one. They said, how old are you? 20? Well, you got to be 21 and a registered voter. So, okay, you can't get the application. So I'm waiting till I make 21 and a registered voter. So that next April 15, 1964, I made 21. April 16, 1964, I went and registered to vote. But I had to take a test and pass the test.
You had to take the test too?
I had to take a test, a written test. And I remember, civil rights didn't come into effect until President Johnson signed in '68 the Civil Rights Bill, where you could vote and register and all that, what have you. I had to take a test and pass it to become a registered voter. I registered to vote as a Democrat in 1964 on April 16th. So I go back and get the application. I say I'm 21 and a registered voter. I had my card there, They gave me an application. Went and filled it out.
East Baton Rouge Parish Police.
City Police.
East Baton Rouge Parish City
Yeah,
Police.
they had 3 blacks working for them then. City Police. They told me to, you got to go out to an altercation and see Dr. Shanaberg, Cadian and Washington. All that was white areas, no blacks nowhere. So I took the application out there and I said, well, I'm a disabled veteran. It was a civil service examination they was going to have to give me. And being a disabled veteran, you got an extra 10 points on the civil service exam. So I went, and the VA told me that this knee injury, this 10% would not stop you from getting a job. So I got the doctor took give me a physical, and he said, well, you got this disability. That's the only thing I can put. Everything else is in good shape. So I take it back to Captain Robert Tompley, who was recruited for the city police at the time. He said, well, we can't hire you because of the disability. I said, well, I could answer the radio. And he said, no, we leave that for guys if they get injured on the job, which kind of sounded legitimate. They already had, I know, 3 blacks working, because that's who I saw in the uniform, and it was very impressive to me. So I said, well, I can't get the job with the city because they say I'm a disabled veteran. They wouldn't hire me. So by then, I'm 21. So then I go to the sheriff's office. And I go to the sheriff's office, ask for an application. Captain Cox was a female sitting right at the sheriff's office at the door. That was his secretary, the sheriff. Brian Clemens was the sheriff. And so she said, we don't have any applications. I said, okay. I go back a couple of months later. I said, I'd like to have an application for the sheriff's office. She said, well, we're not hiring right now. That's twice I've gone down there.
To the sheriff's office.
To the sheriff's office, I couldn't get an application.
Because the city police, they already
had some blacks.
yeah, and they already told you that you're disabled.
I'm disabled.
Well, we got our quotas already.
Right. So the sheriff office, I called the sheriff one day. Let me speak to the sheriff. So she put me through to him. I didn't have to give my name or anything. And I told him who I was. I said, Sheriff, I'd like to get an application from you, and I'd like to see about joining the sheriff's office. I was in college then. And this was in '64. So he said, well, come on down and meet me and I'll give you an application. Well, when I showed up, the secretary was a captain, and she was a white captain. Shocked her. So she sent me on in there to see the sheriff, give me an application. He come out and got an application, shook hands with him. That was a proud moment to shake hands with the sheriff of East Baton Rouge Parish. I'm just a 21-year-old black guy shaking hands with the sheriff. Because, you know, all he thought about was going to jail and all of this stuff. So he talked to me, and I said, Sheriff, you know, I'm married, I've been in the military, got one child, and I'd like to stay on the night shift if I could to continue my education. He said, well, there's nothing wrong with that. If I hire you, we'll leave you on the night shift, because my white deputies go to LSU. You can continue going to Southern. And I said, okay. So as time passed, I called back to part of my application. Well, we checked it. Now, yeah, I wasn't 21 years old. 3 months later, I called back again. We doing a background check on it. I said, how much background I could have? You know, I'd never been in any trouble. So he called me up one Wednesday. He said, come down here and meet with Captain Slyman.
Captain who?
Slyman, Fred Slyman.
Slyman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Captain Fred Slyman, and he's going to interview you. So I went down, and Captain Slyman, first time meeting him, said, you remember the NAACP, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the Black Panthers, the Voters League, or this and that. So that's all he understood, what I belong to. I said, no. And now I know all this is,
you paid that?
Yeah, that would put me out right then. You belong to this, you belong to this. I said, no. I said, young man, you know, just got out of the military and whatever, you got my application now. 8-page application. It was 8 pages long. And so every time I call back, we checking, we still checking.
But that's after you went did the interview?
Yeah, we checking all your references, we checking everything. So one Wednesday, I was at my mama's house, and the phone rang and it said, Dalton, somebody want to speak to you. So I said, hello. He said, this is Sheriff Clemens, Honore, and I want you to come down tomorrow. This is a Wednesday, and fill out your form. We're going to hire you. This was on a Wednesday, the sheriff called me. So I go down and he said, get your application and to fill it out for your beneficiaries and all of this. And come down and do that. And I went down and Captain Cox, I always refer to as Captain Cox. All the white deputies used to call her Miss Polly. I refer to her as her rank and last name. She filled out the application. She said, Saturday, meet Captain Thompson in the basement of the courthouse here so he can give you your uniforms.
What was the courthouse then?
It's the old courthouse.
Downtown?
It's where the city court is.
All right.
That was the old courthouse. And he said, meet, that was the old district courthouse. So he said, meet downstairs and Captain Thompson will give you uniforms. So I go down there, be here before 12 o'clock, before noon. So I go down there about 11:30. I asked to see Captain Thompson. Well, here's a guy, white guy, come out with Captain Balls, and I knew what the insignias was. and he had Thompson on there. I said, Captain, I said, I'm here to see you. God damn, you late. I said, late? That's the first words out of his mouth. I said, late. I said, Captain Cox told me to be here for 12 o'clock. But that ain't what she told me. I said, well, that's what she told me. The first time he saw me. I said, well, let me give you some uniforms, and tonight you meet Lieutenant McCormick on the parking lot, and that's who you're going to ride with tonight. Everybody knew Lieutenant McCormick because he patrolled Scotland, and everybody knew him, and a lot of people he had a good relationship with in the community. But he knew he got all the business information he wanted from people who was telling him. So I got the uniforms, and we was at the time we were wearing long sleeve shirts and neckties, to work. So I drove Daddy's truck down there that night and parked it on the lot. And he said, well, you're gonna be riding with me, and
so he pretty receptive?
He was receptive. People knew him. Black people knew him. And he got along fine in the black neighborhood. He solved a lot of crimes in the black neighborhood because people would tell him.
Okay.
And didn't take me long to find out how he did all of that. And so we took the truck home. I took the truck home and got in the car with him. He said, we're assigned to Scotlandville. And the sheriff put an article in the paper. I'll let you read that article. I got it. The first Negro deputy hired to patrol Scotlandville. The sheriff said he's going to hire some more additional Negroes so they could have around-the-clock patrol. He's an Air Force veteran. He's married, one child. That was Desiree. And so he published that in the paper. So I come home and get in the truck a patrol car with Lieutenant E.H. McCormick. And we started riding that day. So Interstate 10 wasn't there. So the only main road through Baton Rouge was Highway 190. And everything was closed down, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, the clubs was closed. So about 3 o'clock in the morning, we stopped over at the stockyard, at the old Circle D stockyard there, right at the bridge.
It's still there.
It's still there, yeah. It's still there.
Stockyard.
So he got out the car and said, I got to get something to eat. So I got out the car, out the passenger side, and was walking behind him. He said, oh, no, you got to go in there. They had a back door to the stockyard for blacks. And the cooks was black in there, but they were serving you through a little window where the whites had a counter and, all the luxuries. And they went on up there to have lunch. Something to eat to keep us going, keep him going. I ate a big hamburger that night. And so after I finished eating, I got back and sat in the car. And from that day forward, I'll tell you another incident about the Circle D in later years. So I started not eating, and I rode after him. The first week we rode, and 2 white deputies told us to meet them over on Scotland Avenue by the high school. And they say, look, y'all be careful out here riding. Because some folks from Baker had already called and said they're coming down here and shoot up Scotlandville. Baker was all white, 99.9% white.
But they could pass through Scotland.
That's the only way to get home on Old Baker Road, we call it, on Highway 19. They passed through Scotland. They would stop at the shoe shop and get the shoes shined and whatever. The guys would no women would stop in Scotland, no business. Everything in Scotland was black. So he said, well, it was Danny Mixon, who was in the juvenile division, and Miles Heaslip, who was riding it, 2 white guys. And the guy from Zachary, which was Miles Heaslip, they called him Buddy. He said, I don't blame him. So we and McCormick out there in the car with a big white car with a big star under each door. So a year and a half before that, a white deputy got killed over at Anna T. Jordan. And I was a freshman in college. And they had arrested a guy 1963. I was in college. And charged him with murder, and the courts had sentenced him to death in Angola, 17-year-old boy. And from that day to this day, we was always told that he didn't actually do the shooting. He didn't do the shooting, but he was kind of mental challenged. And the pistol was handed to him. And he was cutting class at Anna T. Jordan back at the Recreation Center. You know where Anna T. is. Mm-hmm. And so he went home with the gun. He was a student at Scholarly High School, the new high school, 17 years old. And they arrested him, and they stopped every male black in Scotland to collect. And I didn't realize, this was in '63, this was before I joined the Sheriff's Office. I joined the Sheriff's Office a year and a half later. And they arrested him and sentenced him to death in Angola. The Supreme Court ruled that they had to give him a retrial because it was an all-white jury. Sergeant Pitcher was a DA, and they had a fundraiser for Charles Hurt was the deputy name. For him during the trial, and say, put no white man better not vote to free this N-word brother for killing a white white deputy sheriff. But the word first came out, run through Scotland and say he didn't do it, and say his partner, they caught him in a lie, the other deputy. They dropped off one of the deputies coming through the Anna T. Jordan from the side of it, where the grass road guys were cut through to go play hooky. I'd done it myself when I was a boy. Mm-hmm. And the car drove around and come in and Steel Street, coming to the front of Anna T. Jordan. They caught the deputy who was riding with him in a lie on the witness stand, saying he was just fun and he changed his mind, he changed his tune and all of that. There was two white deputies now. But they caught him in a lie, and he had to replay that story or something a couple of times on TV. So he saw Charles Hurt with his hands up in the guy, but he was shaking him down. And the boy never got mentally challenged. He never could defend himself. He never said he did, never said he didn't. He didn't even realize what was going on. Johnny Jones was his attorney. And they never talked about him. So the first week, I asked Lieutenant McCormick, I said, show me where that deputy was killed at in Anna T. Jordan. So we was riding and he rode me back. He said, this is the spot he was killed in. And so he didn't talk about it anymore. Nobody else talked about it. I just come a year and a half later. And the second guy I rode with was a sergeant. They had sheriff's office had 3 patrol units, MOC units, to patrol the parish. 1 north, 1 central, and 1 south. That was, Baton Rouge city limits wasn't that big. And they took in all of that area, and they had a detective car out that would wait until about 12 o'clock at night. And but there was only 3 cars to patrol the entire parish. And they put the 4th car was going to be patrolling Scotland, because that's what the population was, a black population. And so they never told me, you can't arrest a white person, you can't do this, you can't do that. I never heard the N-word used over the radio while I was with the sheriff's office. But I tell you who used to use it every time they pick up the microphone was the state police. State police and the sheriff's office on the same frequency, 39.5 at the time. And they sent out a bulletin. Anytime the state police used the radio, they was using the N-word. This was in 1965. You had no control of them because it was all on the same system. I didn't hear the sheriff's office in Port Allen use it. We was all, same system, St. Francisville. But the state police just used that word like they're talking about everyday conversation. Everyday conversation came over the airways from the state police. And so anyway, the second guy I rode with was Sergeant A.B. Catria. still in May 65. And I remember we was driving into the parish prison back there. It was old Army barracks. The trustees used to work a pea farm. Lived over there. You know, there was all trustees. They'd go out and farm, and they used to do their own canning back there for the jail and stuff like that. And he pulled up there and he said, Honore, they told him to give him a call. Give the headquarters a call. Wasn't no communication, wasn't no two-way radios where we could just grab it and talk.
Oh, you good now?
No, they had one. The only person had was a lieutenant on the shift, you know, in case you get caught out somewhere. And an old communication system, no cell phones, none of that stuff. So they told him to give him a call, headquarters. And he come back and got in the car and he told me, say, Honore, white guy from Mississippi, he said, I'm not happy riding with you as I would be my partner. I said, what happened, Sergeant? He said, somebody shot and killed a deputy, a colored deputy, down in Bogalusa area, out from Bonneville. Two black deputies riding in a patrol car, and a truck passed them and shot the windshields out. Killed one of the deputies and the other one in the hospital. And the word came out. I hadn't had 3 weeks. It was in the end of May 65. I hadn't been working for a month. Only 3 weeks at work. He said, but I can tell you what. I'm not happy riding with you, but I can tell you one thing. If somebody tried to shoot you, damn it, I'm going to shoot back. And so I said, well, if I get the opportunity myself, Sergeant, I said, I'm going to shoot back too. I said, but them guys didn't have an opportunity. They killed one of their deputies with the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office.
So being a deputy was a dangerous job,
Yes,
being
sir.
a black deputy.
Okay, but that ain't all. And I said, that's not all. Then the third person I rode with was Lieutenant Cole, Tommy Cole. He was a lieutenant. They had a lieutenant and a sergeant on every shift. They didn't have a 3 car to the shift. And all we did was basically patrol Scotland a little while and then go down to headquarters and sit around headquarters all night. You know, we'll go on call if we come up in Scotland. And, you know, and I said Scotlandville. They didn't send me to, they'd send me to 77, and you had to go where they'd send you, you know, to a call. But Banks area was all white. They didn't give me a call in the Banks area. They give me, you know, they'd send another call. And from 77th on to the parish line, well, you know, that's where I would work. Baker had their own police force at the time. Zachary didn't have a police force, so we answered calls in Zachary. There wasn't much going on. Zachary, this is a rural town. The guy who became chief of Zachary that's at the police department up was working at the sheriff's office then. So he left and went to Zachary right after I got to work and tried and set up the Zachary police department. But Baker had their own, because it was all white town.
Oh, okay.
And we'd never had a call in Baker, never had to answer a call in Baker.
But y'all patrol Baker.
No, we didn't patrol Baker. Baker had their own law enforcement.
Okay.
But the guys in Baker was commissioned by the sheriff to catch anything outside of Baker or back us up on anything. And so when every time they would stop to eat at the Circle D, I'd sit in the car.
What was the second D?
That's the old stockyard.
Stockyard, okay.
I never did go back in the room.
Oh, since you couldn't go with everybody
I
else?
couldn't go everybody, I stayed in the car. That's during the time of 65, the marchers was marching from Bogalusa, Easy Young and all of them, and demonstration was going on. And so I sat in the car. And that was the main drag through there. Even the sheriff used to be, you know, to go to the Circle D. So then they hired a black guy, said they're gonna hire him right after me to work at the prison to be over the black prisoners out in the field. Bobby Freeman, they called him. He was an older man. And he worked as hard as the prisoners, you know, showing them what to do and raising farm. It was farming over there on Harding Boulevard.
It's called free labor. Huh?
Free labor, yeah. It was farming. And then they hired a black guy out of Baker. His name was Bolton, Claude Bolton, to put in the car with us. So I rode with him. I mean, he rode in the car with me and the white guy.
So y'all didn't have your own car?
No, not at that time. So they hired him about. They hired me in May. They hired him about June, and I was still riding with the white guys. 6 white guys I rode with, and then after that I rode with Lieutenant Tom Walsh. He was a lieutenant, and I rode with him twice. So we were working 8:30 at night to 4:30 in the morning. I was getting up going to school for 8 o'clock at Southern. Working 48 hours a week, $300 a month. White boys were starting at $350, but I was there a year before I found out they were starting at $350. Sheriff started with what you want, but the word would never discuss your salary with anybody. So Bolton didn't last long, and one night I was patrolling by myself out here. I was patrolling by myself, and McCormick called me. He said, Honore, I got somebody want to meet you. So I rode up to the car on Mills and Scene, and who's sitting in the car with him but the sheriff. And the sheriff said, Dalton said, Honore, what he called me, said, why you didn't tell me that other deputy wasn't doing right? I said, well, I figured one day you'd find out. The other deputy was Bolton. When they separated, give us a car to patrol Scotlandville. They said they wasn't going to leave the car in Scotland. Bolton lived in Baker on Chamberlain. So he can take the car home and pick you up, but I'm the lead man now. I said, okay. So one Sunday, I was getting ready to go to work, ready for him to pick me up. And Lieutenant Walsh and another guy brought the car to my house. I said, what's bringing the car here for me? He said, well, he was up there speeding up and down the road in Baker. Somebody called in on him, so he don't have no more job. Just like that. So that put me by myself and the car. So I was living there on Avenue 8, going to work at 8:30 in the morning. I mean at night, getting off at 4:30 in the morning, working 48 hours a week, $300. But when I saw the sheriff that night, he come out to meet me on the road. He said, well, I'm gonna give you $50 pay raise. I said, I appreciate it, Sheriff. And now I'm gonna make it $350.
Make what everybody else making.
Yeah, I was making what everybody else made, but I had 6 months on the job with anybody now. So I'm riding by myself. And I rode with Sergeant White, Mac White, that's Bolton's white daddy.
Okay.
I rode with him, and for the night, and I had good training, but from all of the guys. But I would see, I rode with a Sergeant Sullivan, and I rode with Sergeant Contreras, Sergeant White, and Sergeant Sullivan. I rode with Lieutenant McCormick, Lieutenant Walsh, and Lieutenant Cole. So one night we got a call from West Baton Rouge. I was riding with Lieutenant Walsh, who lived on Highland Road. All of them lived way down south somewhere. Sergeant White lived out on Blackwater Road. I met his family. He took me by the house. I met his family. I met Lieutenant McCormick's wife and some of his family. Never did go by Lieutenant Cole's house. I was something new out there to everybody. So, anyway, when they put me by myself, because they fired Bolton, I started riding by myself. But before that, I was riding with Lieutenant Thomas Walsh, and I'll never forget what he told me. They called us from West Baton Rouge Parish. They picked up somebody who was wanted over here in Baton Rouge. And they brought him to Circle D on this side of the river for us to pick him up. And on our way to pick him up, there was 2 black deputies over in Port Allen. They had black deputies long before East Baton Rouge Parish did, and they was working just the barrooms over there in Port Allen. It was, they had a few calls they would answer. And Lieutenant Walsh told me, say, Honore, said, let me tell you something. If they'd have told me you'd have been sitting up here in this front seat by me, you know what I'd have told them to do with this job. I said, well, Lieutenant, I said, you know, time's changing some now. And when I got out the car, two black deputies, I shook their hand. He said, I don't take a colored man's hand. I said, well, that's you. You know, a handshake don't mean nothing to me. I said, but I'm that kind of individual. You know, I'd be comfortable with anybody. So he told me he didn't shake a colored man's hand. And, but I never heard the N-word while I was riding in any of those units. I never heard, because the sheriff is an elected official. And he had to come to Scotlandville, he had to go out in the park, he had to go to South Baton Rouge to get all the black votes he could get. That's how he got elected. He stayed in there until 1972.
And what was his full name?
Brian Clemens.
Brian Clemens.
Brian Clemens. He loved to gamble, and he used to spend a lot of time in Las Vegas, they said. You know, and
But he was the sheriff
that hired me.
that hired you, but also when the incident happened on Southern University campus,
He was not the sheriff.
he was the sheriff. He was the sheriff. then?
He was not the sheriff. So anyway, I started riding by myself.
You big time now.
No, I'm just in Scotland by myself. They would send me on a call. And I was from Scotland, I knew everybody. You know, I wasn't afraid of nobody. I grew up in Scotlandville. And I think that one of the reasons they hired me at the sheriff's office, I had some military service. I had the opportunity of dealing with whites in the military for a period of time. And if you were just in Scotlandville, you know, all people in Scotlandville was black except the Italians who owned the grocery stores. I'd say grocery stores or businesses. They had a clothing store, dry goods store, and what have you, and stuff like that in Scotlandville. Little shopping center, fish market, and all of that, you know. It used to be a little shopping complex right down Harding and Scenic, where Jack in the Box is now. They used to have Caruso's there, you know. It was a little shopping center. One was on Swan and Scenic, and but you did everything in Scotlandville. You know, you didn't have to go out of Scotlandville.
So Scotlandville was self-contained.
Right, it was basically self-contained at that time. So, so anyway, I rode with those guys, and every one of them would stop at the Circle D, or the stockyard, to eat. Tommy Cole didn't stop there. He went to the downtown to the communication room, and we spent most of our time down there with him. You know, he was just going to LSU and what have you, and you know, he was just a different guy.
Now, but when you started driving by yourself, where did you start eating at then?
I didn't. I usually could stop home and eat.
Oh, okay.
I had to start keeping the car in. You see, I could stop home and eat. Wasn't nothing in Scotland open. I used to go by they had a motel on Flicker Street in Scotlandville, and I used to go out of the car, out of service at that. You know, just sit there and talk to the guy who was working the night shift. I got off at 4:30 in the morning, and drink coffee with him and what have you. And so there wasn't nowhere to stop. You just patrolled it, and you know, the bar room was closing down at 2 o'clock. 4:30 I got off, and then they had some bar rooms that closed. Stayed on all night. They wasn't enforcing the closing law.
So there's a lot of controversy or fights going on back then?
Not really. We didn't have a lot of that. I can sit here and tell you today that I've never took a nightstick and hit nobody. I never hit nobody with my hand or slapped nobody or what have you, because I knew everybody. I would see them in Scotland. And to give you an example, the first week I was out, we got a call in Alson, Rafemar Road. The office said, you know, and we had a radio operator who put a little drama to every call. And he said, well, they got a guy in in Alson on Rafemar Road. He caught his wife messing up, and he up there at the trailer with a shotgun, and that's where she was with her mama, and he said he was going to turn that trailer into a sifter. So we get the call, and remember, they still a little tense because the deputy got killed in Scotland. year and a half, before I went to work. So we get the call, we go to the house on Rave Mile Road. I was riding with Lieutenant McCormick. He jumps out the car with the shotgun. The spotlight's on the guy. The guy's standing there with a shotgun. Side of the trailer, he lit up the car lights and the spotlight on him. McCormick got the shotgun. I jumps out the car right then and holler at the guy. The guy lived right across the street from me on Avenue 8.
Oh, you knew him?
I knew him. I hollered and called his name. Said, Vic. He said, that's you, Dalton? He knew I'd gone to work at the sheriff's office. I said, yeah, put the gun down. And legally you would have said, you're going to shoot. This guy standing with a shotgun. I said, put the gun down. He dropped the gun, took him to jail. And when he got out, he moved right back in the house across the street from him. And that's how many people I knew in Scotland, because I moved around and knew guys in every neighborhood. And it wasn't, well, I don't know this guy, he's from Broadmoor, Sherwood Forest, in that area. It was just that simple. It was community policing as what it really is.
So what you're saying, if East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff or either city police hire community police that's from the community,
right,
a lot of incidents that take place probably will not take place.
It will not take place. I've always stressed, and I stayed in the avenues for 75 years. I've been at this location now for almost 5 years. I got married 5 years ago and moved. And when I die, they're going to bury me at Port Hudson National Cemetery. And I tell people I'll still be across that track. And
next to the river, huh?
yeah, I'll be across the track. But they have since opened up a new military graveyard because that one is full at Port Hudson. But my first wife is buried at Port Hudson. So that's where I'm going when I die, National Cemetery at Port Hudson. But I knew all the people. You got a feeling for your community when you pass the same people every day. You know if a vehicle been moved, you know if something going on at this spot. You notice because you're there. It's your community. I always had a phone number that was in the telephone directory. People would stop at my house, talk to me, get advice. And I get calls today, and I've been going from the sheriff's office 40 years. Now, what you ought to do about this? Do you know anybody here? I know a lot of people everywhere. So,
what made you leave the?
Well, getting back to 1965, I wasn't making no money. I was married, and I had built an apartment. I'm gonna tell you, I moved in there at 22 years old. So they was working, they were hiring people at Crown Jellback, which is a paper mill in St. Francisville. So the guy who was riding with me at that time, he said, man, they're hiring up there at St. Francisville at the paper mill. I said, let's go get a job. Went to St. Francisville at the paper mill in February 1967. And I had my college degree at the time. And the guy said, well, you got to go on the extra board. I said, well, it was paying more than sheriff's office. I said, but I wanted a better job. You could work in one spot and they move you into another one. So they moved me to another spot in the Crown Jellback mill where we was grinding up log within the groundwood, they call that. And worked there and making good money. By this time, in 72, no, let me back up some. I worked there from 67 to April of 67. So I started teaching school at Scholarville. Went back to Scholarville to teach schools, teaching industrial law, the same school I had dropped out from.
So why you was a sheriff?
No, I wasn't a sheriff at the time.
Okay.
I was working, I had quit and gone to Crown Jellback. When I didn't work long at Crown Jellback, I went to teaching school. They was hiring in August. Let me tell you how I got that job. When I graduated from college, I took the national teaching exam and passed it. It wasn't required, but I passed it back then in 1966. So Exxon was going to put out some flyers, they're going to hire some from blacks at the plant. We still wasn't working there. I mean, it wasn't Exxon at the time. It was still Humble Oil.
Stanley Oil?
No, it wasn't Standard Oil. I think it was maybe Humble or something. They changed the name 2 or 3 times. So, the word Exxon doesn't mean anything in the world, so that's why they got the word Exxon. But anyway, they was going to hire some technicians. And so I went to take the test, California Achievement Test. I used to take tests for the hell of it.
California Achievement Test?
That was the California Achievement Test they was given. And I took the test and waiting on them to call me to go to work. So they said, well, your score wasn't high enough for the technician, but we could hire you as a laborer. I said, no, that's what I was looking for. So in the meantime, Exxon Plastics plant here on 19, it's Exxon now, where you got identified, they gave a test. They was going to hire 10 instrument techs. I said, well, I'm going to take the test at Exxon Plastics.
Take all the tests.
Yeah, I took the test and I passed the test. And the guy called me back for an interview. He said, A.P. Scotland was his name. He said, look, you passed the test, but for instrument tech. He said, but what we're going to do is hire 1 black. And we're going to hire 10 people, but the black guy we're going to hire, and he gave me the name I went to high school with. He said he had been in the Navy, and he worked on a ship, and we're going to hire him. I said, okay. So I decided I was going to teach school then. So I went and filled out an application to teach school at Scotlandville. They had an opening there. And I went and filled out the application to take the test. Not the test, to fill out the application for the teach school. So the guy hired me, the principal hired me, I knew him, he was my principal in high school, to teach industrial arts. I graduated in industrial arts because, I like the hammer and saws and all of this stuff. So I started teaching at Scotlandville. It was an honor for me to go back to teach at the school I had dropped out from. And in 1968, they had built a new parish prison. The parish prison we have today. And they were giving a tour of it. So I was touring the parish prison, and the sergeant I rode with was a warden over there. He was a major then, A.B. Catria. He saw me in the crowd, going through looking at the prison, and he was touring, giving people what this cell gonna be used for and all that. And he said, hey, Honore said, I want to talk to you when they finished his tour. And I said, okay. I said, after the tour was over, I said, what you want to talk about, Major? He said, I want you to come to work for me. I want you to come to work at this prison. I'm fixing to open it up in a week or so. And I know you. I know your capabilities. I want you to start work. I said, well, Major, I said, I'm teaching school now at Scotlandville. He said, well, I'll put you on straight night, and you can continue teaching during the day. And when school is over in May, you can start rotating. And I said, okay, I'll do that. A week later, he called me and he said, look, we're fixing to start transferring the prisoners from the downtown jail up to the parish prison. The prison was built for a capacity of about 1,500. It opened in March of '68. He said, can you come to work Saturday? I said, yeah, I said, I can. Don't have a uniform or nothing. He said, meet me at the courthouse, and I want you to ride shotgun on the paddy wagon. I said, okay. I don't know what I'd make it, $450 a month then, with the sheriff's office. So I started teaching school. I was making $5,200 a year teaching industrial art at Scotlandville. And he said, I want you to ride on the paddy wagon, shotgun. So I'm in plain clothes with the shotgun, transferring the prisoners. I'm driving, I'm riding shotgun. Paddy wagon full of prisoners. But they all knew me from the sheriff's office.
Oh, okay then. Okay.
And so we transferred, and I started working night shift at the prison. And I'm teaching school during the day. So then I'm making a little extra money from March through the end of May. 2 jobs I'm working full time. And then they was fixing to start integrating the high schools here in Baton Rouge, or the schools, I should say, in Baton Rouge. And one of the black supervisors who was with the school system came to me at Scotlandville, and we had 3 industrial art teachers over there. He said, Mr. Honore, we want to transfer you to another school. I said, well, I don't want to leave Scotlandville. He said, the reason we want to transfer you to another school because we're going to lose one of these teachers. And you passed the national teacher exam. It wasn't required, but we want to put our best teachers in the white schools. I lost respect for that guy that day. He's deceased now. And I said, well, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back to the sheriff's office. I was already working in the sheriff's office. And I said, I'm not going to accept the job. They offered me 5. They offered me a good Broadmoor, Rowdy Lee.
He told you to put the best.
The best black teachers in the white school. We had one white teacher at Scotlandville at the time, and she was a librarian.
He's going to put the best.
The best black teachers we got in the white school. I was just kind of to me standing in Scotlandville.
And that was a white man.
That was a black guy told me.
That was a black guy told
Yeah,
you?
that was a black guy told me that. So you passed the national teacher exam, and it wasn't required, but you're the only black in the system who had passed the national teacher exam when you got out of college. But now you know, one of the guys who had done my student teaching under, who I went back and who was my mentor, was one of the teachers, and I thought this guy knew his business, Walter Banks. You know, he taught me in high school. He got me interested in industrial arts. And then when I met my wife, my father-in-law was an industrial art teacher, so I was interested in industrial arts. You know, and I was doing carpentry work and stuff like that. But very intelligent man. And but the national teacher exam wasn't required at that time.
So what made you decide to take the national teacher exam?
Well, they gave it to you when you finished college. Because I was in education, and they was requiring you to take it in 1960.
And you was a good test taker.
Right. I took the test and passed. And but I used to take tests for the hell of it sometimes, just to see how I would do. And I took a test at Dow Chemical back in the 60s. And I called, and they said, come down and see us. So I went down and see them and said, well, so you passed the test. I said, but you in college. Now I want you to answer this question. I said, what question? If you could hire a guy with a college degree and one without a college degree for the same price, who would you hire? I said, well, I understand. I was in college at the time. So they were looking for college graduates, black, to hire at Dow when they first started hiring blacks. When I was at Scotlandville teaching, Standard Oil or Exxon hired one of the co-workers from Scotlandville. And at the time he came back and said, you know, Exxon will build me a separate bathroom down there at the plant. But he came back to teach school after years at Exxon. He worked there for several years. And then he said,
but you decided to leave the school system.
right.
And work full-time with the
sheriff's office.
But as a sheriff at the prison.
At the prison.
Now the new thing today is that they're saying that the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison is not a prison, it's a jail.
Right.
And it shouldn't be housed in long-term people in their long-term for those 10, 15, 20 years. So what's your thought on that?
Well, it has gotten so crowded, they added on to the prison. But the prison opened in March 1968. And that summer, we had everything full but one little wing of the prison. Summer of 68, because I was working.
So in 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, 4 or 5 months.
It was full?
It was full.
So would you say prison is a big business?
It is a big business today. It is a big business today, and it's always been a big business. But let me tell you, when I went to the legislature, I would argue down there about prisoners' population. I said 80% of the prisoners are black. 80%. And every one of them got a marijuana charge on them from old days. because they come out with the strike 3 law and anything. And I was on a panel one time when I was in the legislature. And a former district attorney, former judge was a district attorney, Caddo Parish, was on the panel with me at the LPD. And he said, you know, as the district attorney or the judge, if we wanted to get somebody off the streets, we're having no problem with them, we'll look around and try to find out old charge on them. They was arrested when they was 18 as marijuana. And they'll give them the 3-strike clause and you send us to prison for life. And I've seen people go to Angola for having a joint. I'm 80 years old. I've never tried a marijuana cigarette. Never been in the company of people smoking marijuana because they all respected me as a law enforcement agent. When I was a boy, about 13, living in the avenues, word spread like wildfire. The police had stopped some people out on Scenic Highway with some dope in the car. And everybody come to see what they was talking about. Yeah, I was a young teenager. 2 people they arrested for marijuana, they said. That was the dope they just called it dope. 1 black guy, 2 black guys. 1 black guy worked on a plantation. He didn't go to prison. The other black guy had been in the army, so he smoked marijuana in his army days. He went to prison. That's how the other guy working on the plantation didn't go. And I knew the guy who had gone to prison. I remember when he got out, clean cut, clean shaven. The first night I was riding, first week I was riding, Lieutenant, give officer a call. Man, it was, you know, the codes, give him 1021. And okay, I know that boy, I'll take care of him, don't worry about it. That boy go out, talk to his parents. I saw that happen on all the people I was riding with, white guys I was riding with. I said, well, this is the way it happened.
For them?
Yeah, for them, for the whites.
So that's the
They didn't explain it on the air. They asked the lieutenant or the sergeant to call the headquarters, and another unit had called them up and said they'd stop so and so with marijuana. And I said,
so often and still today, a lot of white people get passed.
Same thing.
Same.
So I was talking to the sheriff here one day. I said, Sheriff, let me tell you something. Just since I retired, this a few years ago, I was talking to Sheriff Gautreaux, and I like Sheriff Gautreaux.
I like him too, good man.
I'm gonna tell you why I like him. He was a young guy raised in Baker. In 1973, I became a captain to run the substation at Scotlandville. I'll tell you how I got to that. And I told him, I said, Sheriff, you know, I've never arrested anybody for marijuana in my life. Never smoked it. Never been in the company nobody smoking it. Because I saw how it was done when I was riding with the white guys, and I rode with 6 of them. I say, and after I became a captain at the sheriff's office, I still kept that to myself. I never told the black guys who was working for me how the system operated. They should have seen. Because I was afraid that they was going to go out, and I knew what they was going to go back and tell my supervisors, Honore said don't put nobody in jail for smoking marijuana or what have you. And then they'd have had me for malfeasance. I never told anybody.
So then it came after you.
It came after me.
Because you about to shut this system down.
Yeah. I said, I never put anybody in jail for a marijuana cigarette. And I never told anybody not to.
But now, what about this year? Whatever year that crime bill came out, 1984, I believe, somewhere around there. But President Clinton, you know, the Democrats signed the crime bill. And President Biden signed off on it back then.
Mm-hmm.
The worst bill, one of the worst bills that happened, that was one of the start of mass incarceration. That to this day, we're seeing the impact effect of that bill that incarcerated all these black men and took them out of the household, out of the community. And that, what it is, 40 years, almost 40 years later, the children, the grandchildren of this bill are now the ones who are committing the so-called crimes and the drug thing that's going on. So that bill devastated our community, would you say?
And it still is. The system is designed to cripple us.
The system that you work for,
The system that I work for,
that's still existing today,
that still exists today.
don't serve us any. Don't serve our.
No, we just handle it different. Let me go back to some of the situation with the sheriff's office. So in 1968, I'm working at the parish prison for the warden right there. And we got to open up the prison, it's almost full, 68. And I told the deputies, I said, we got to, I'm trying to fight. I was a spokesman. Because I was the first one. And I had dealt with whites in the military. And I know, how I was treated there. So I said, well, we're going to call a meeting. I'm going to call a meeting at the parish prison where I was working. And I want the black deputies to come in, actually for the sheriff, and come in and voice your opinion. All the deputies we had at the parish prison that was available to come in the meeting, we only had about 2 of those come to the meeting. It was at the prison. I was working that night. And the deputies on the road, maybe 2 or 3 of those come. There was about 6 of us. The sheriff came up with his son, Brian Clemens. And up until that time, they only had one sergeant, black sergeant at the sheriff's office. He was hired January 1st, 1966.
Who was he?
Albert Anderson. So here in 1968, he didn't make that rank until 1971. I got hired in 65. So we called for the sheriff. He came up, and we sat in a room, and I was the spokesman. I said, Sheriff, we just want the same thing as the white deputies got. Same equipment, same type cars. We was all getting handouts. I said, we're not interested in patrolling Broadmoor or Sherwood Forest. We want the same equipment, the same quality of cars, same uniforms as the rest of the deputies. There ain't time for that. And he started talking, and he got up and walked out the room. His son was there with him, who was a captain at the sheriff's office. And the sheriff got up, Brian Clemens walked out to the car, sat under the salad port and started blowing his horn. I said, Captain, your daddy blowing his horn out there. He wants you to come out. That's why he's blowing his horn. So the captain was trying to explain to us, my dad had got upset with Honore and what have you, asking these questions.
You ain't supposed to challenge that white man.
No, I wasn't supposed to challenge him.
Now, who are you?
Who am I?
Now you become an uppity, huh?
Yeah, so that's when, at the time, they were building these plants. So I went, it was 68. I went to a plant out here in, it's on plastic plant, resin plant, not plastic, a resin plant. And took the test for the job that was hired. And the guy said, we'd like to hire you. But he said, where are you working now? I said, with the sheriff's office. It's the second trip to that. He said, we'd like to hire you. And if you was working at one of the plants down the river, we wouldn't hire you because we just figured you want to get here so you could get closer home. So by this time, I done put 2 years in the plant. They hired me at the plant. And I done put 2 years in at the plant. We started with $500 a month. In the first 6 months, we were supposed to get a $50 raise. They didn't give me the raise.
At the plant?
At the plant, yeah.
Okay.
And they said, this was in 1968. And I said, what about my raise? Raise for my 6 months here, I know the job. I said, yeah, but your attitude ain't right. I said, well, my attitude ain't right. All I'm doing is asking questions and trying to learn about this job. So they didn't give me the first $50 pay raise. And I was, it was young. I was in the process of getting ready to build a house in Crestworth, but I had 2 children now, 68, when Dalton was born. This was October 68. And so the next 6 months he gave me a raise, and I knew the plant. We had one black they had hired for a senior tech. And they put us on the same shift. Well, they had the equipment there that was electronic equipment, a palletizer that would stack the pallets. It was a resin plant. You bag 50 pounds, and it automatically drops and go around and get on the pallet. The palletizer would stack them like they're on the where the fork truck just drive up there. Well, I knew that, and I kept the palletizer running because I studied it. And my shift, the machine did the work. The other shifts, they done it by hand. And I knew the job. So when I spent almost 2 years there, and a job opening came open where one of the senior techs took a job at one of the other plants. And I applied for the senior tech position. They said, no, we're closing a plant down in Alabama. We're going to move somebody to take this senior tech job. He'd been with the company. So they moved a white guy to the plant. And at the same time, they were building Rollins Environmental Services plant across the street from it. So I went over there and applied for that job. And they hired me over there as a senior tech at $750 a month. And I was
almost $200 different.
Yeah, and I was a senior tech over there. And I had 2 white guys working for me. But Rollins was from out of Pennsylvania. And so I worked there a year and a half, and I got involved in politics. So I left the sheriff's office, and I started campaigning against Brian Clemens, because he said he wasn't going to do nothing.
So after that meeting you had with him,
He said he wasn't going to do nothing.
So after that meeting,
right,
and you knew then that the relationship had already been
right.
No, so you got to figure out.
I got to start looking for something else.
Yeah, you got to start playing.
So '68, I went to the plant, worked there for 2 years. In the meantime, they told me they was going to hire me across the street at Rollins Environmental Service. I was the highest ranking black over there. They hired me. And I was making money back then in '68 when they hired me. And I was taking on because it was a startup phase. And it's something we got paid every week. And in some weeks I was taking home $500. I was putting in a lot of hours.
That's a lot of money back then.
It was a lot of money. I paid all my FICA money by August of that first year. I had paid it all. And in the meantime, I built a house in Crestworth because I had my 2 kids. My wife was pregnant with my baby boy. We would go to the mortgage company to fill out the paperwork for it. They said, well, we can't take your wife, Sarah, because she finished college at 65. She's a social worker. And we don't consider that as a professional job, where if you have a baby, you could go back to work. So if she wasn't not a teacher, we could not take her salary, her annual salary for this. So that put me on my salary. The little rent I had coming off the apartment, so I was going to be three times 75 then. So, and I got my VA loan, and the VA loan would guarantee the money. So the guy told me, the white guy named Sneplin, Roy Sneplin, built my house. He said, Mr. Honore, I like the way you handle yourself. Say, I'm going to put $2,000 down that you're going to pay down on the house, and you're going to paint it inside. Do all the painting around the house. I said, okay. He said, but I'm going to work it out for my people to take care of all that, but I want to see you in this house. And I got a 1,900 square foot house, corner lot.
1,900 square foot?
Yeah, corner lot.
That's a big house.
Yeah, corner lot, 4 bedroom, 2 full bath. And total turnkey job for $30,000. And the house note was $252 a month. That was a big number too.
2,000, basically 2,000 square foot.
Yes, $252 a month. And so
That's in the late 60s.
that was in 1970. I moved in 1970. My wife was pregnant with my baby. So they couldn't let them know that she was pregnant, and they couldn't take her salary anyway, because she wasn't teaching school. So they had to use everything what I had, the income I had. At the time, I was getting $15 a month from the Veterans Administration for being a disabled veteran.
So when it comes up, they find everything
They find, yeah, and the guy said, I want to see you with this house.
So somebody had enough saw which this man was.
This man worked with.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't look at the white race and judge the whole race as one people. I work with individuals, and I got a lot of respect for a lot of white people. Depends on the way they treat me. That's the way I treat them. And you know, I can be just as negative as they can, but I don't go out with a negative attitude. You know, I've always been a guy who got along with people, and I studied a lot. When they talk about something, I want to talk about it. I want to be on the inside of things that I know what's going on. You know, I don't go into nothing blind.
You know, after working at the sheriff's department,
That's twice, did it?
Seeing the injustice and seeing where the sheriff himself didn't give a good hoot.
Right.
And you decided to run for sheriff.
No, not at that time. This was 1972 that Al Amos ran for sheriff.
You ran.
No, I didn't run then. I worked against the sheriff to get us a new sheriff in. And because I knew we wasn't going nowhere at the sheriff's office.
That was a dead end.
Right, the sheriff had already walked out the meeting notes. And so Emmett Douglas, who was the head of the NAACP, and he lived over in New Road, we had meetings with him. And he said he better not find nobody supporting Brian Clemens. And he thought they had a First Ward Voters League and a Second Ward Voters League. You know, this area was the Second Ward Voters League. It was outside the city limits. First Ward was inside the city limits. And so in the Third Ward, which is still, that's all outlying areas, Central and South, Georgia, Village St. George and all of that places, you got me? That's the 3rd district. And so anyway, there was an election year that they reapportioned the state legislature. And that's when we had about, I guess 15 or 20 blacks running for state office in legislature. We didn't have one at the time from New Orleans. So in 71, the legislature had been reapportioned. They couldn't do it themselves. So a guy named Ed Steiner came in and drew the boundaries and everything. And you know, that was after the 68 Voting Rights Act and all of that. And you know, blacks had the opportunity to vote for somebody who looked like them, who got a chance. So that's who we started electing some black representatives.
In the early 70s.
Early 70s. 1971.
That was right after reapportionment.
Reapportionment, yeah. You know, every 10 years you got to reapportion.
And they fighting right now.
Right, and they fighting and still fighting. And so Ed Steiner came in and reapportioned the legislature. And that way they give us about 6 or 8 black state representatives going in. It's 3 or 4 black state senators going in. And
that's when Dick Turner.
Dick Turner. I worked in Dick Turner's campaign, helped him get elected. And that's when we all come together, and they know I worked at the sheriff's office, and we trying to get us a new sheriff. And I had opportunity, Al Amos was a constable here. And he decided the power to be asked him to run for sheriff, and he decided to run for sheriff. And the word came that when he ran for sheriff, and said, Dalton, I want you to come back to work if I win this job. And I'm going to make you a captain. Now here I've been a deputy all my life. I mean, you know, I've been to the sheriff's office 2 times already.
So you ended up the sheriff's office over there?
Yeah, and so what happened I started working campaigning for Richard Turner, and we against some of the old power structure, Ward 2, you know, we was Ward 2. He ran against A.C. Dalton, who was a top man in Ward 2 at the time. And we won the election. And Al Amos told me, he said, well, I'm going to make you a captain. I'm going to hire 2 people to come back to my sheriff's office, come back to the sheriff's office as a captain. As you and Mac White. Mac White was the same guy. Both his dad, yeah. You go be the one night captain, you be the day captain, or whatever the case may be, you know, y'all flip-flop. So, when he took office, but before he took office, he won it in 71. In 1972, January 10th, I was working at the Rollins Inn they had a riot and a killing of deputies in Muslim on North Boulevard, January 10th, 1972. I wasn't working at the sheriff's office then, I was working at Rollins. 2 deputies got killed and 2 Muslims got killed at the scene on North Boulevard. Brian Clemens said he was going to fire all the blacks.
All the black police officers?
The sheriff's
office?
Yeah. But then the riot came up, but they didn't vote for him, he said, and that's when Al Amos won the office. So when the riot came up in January 72, he held on to some. He held on to some of the black deputies. When Al Amos said when he was coming in office, he was going to hire some black deputies, some more black deputies. And at the time we had 1 sergeant, black sergeant at the sheriff's office, and he stayed on the radio campaigning for Brian Clemens. He was on the radio, you know, Sheriff Clemens is a good man, and I'm out there saying that, you know, we blacks can't get nothing from the sheriff's office.
You done worked with him twice?
Yeah, I done worked for him twice. So Al Amos got elected, and then Al Amos was going to bring his new people in, you know, chief deputy and a new warden and stuff like that. So he said, Dalton, when I take office July 1st, I'll make you captain. Then Fred Simon steps in. Well, he hadn't been to any schools. I said, I hadn't been to any schools, law enforcement schools, because y'all wouldn't send me. That's why I haven't been. So the sheriff said, well, we'll send you to the first one that opened, the Law Enforcement Institute at LSU. And in the meantime, this 72, the sheriff take office July 1st of 72.
July the 1st.
Okay. That's when that office, he took office, 72. And that's when the demonstration happened at Southern. I was a lieutenant. They brought me back as a lieutenant in an intelligence division. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew, you know, I wasn't trying to hide. They knew me from uniform. They knew I went to school at Southern. I was a deputy when I was going to school at Southern. I had a good relationship with the community, with the university and everything. So in 1972, Rollins said, well, we don't need your service anymore. It was a union situation up there. I was out in the plant working as a supervisor. The company wanted a special union in there. They wanted a Teamster union. And the workers wanted a different union. And I thought about my daddy at Cope-Parliament. They tried to get a union from Cope-Parliament to come in there. And they had 9 unions at Cope-Parliament. Only one had blacks in it. That was the labor union. And I said, well, I don't want to see the union from Cope-Parliament come in here. It was operating engineers. I said, I don't want to see them come in here. And I know how they operate at Cope-Parliament. Only one union in Cope-Parliament had blacks in it. That was the labor union. And I was told that any black at Cope-Parliament, any white at Cope-Parliament could tell any black in the plant what to do. What to do. This was in 1970. 1970. 2 weeks after I moved into my house, my daddy died, and he was working at Cope-Parliament. I said, I don't want to see no union from Cope-Parliament come in this plant. So we went to court. And before we went to federal court, the labor court, federal court for the union, because I was a spokesman for the men in the field, they moved me to office. I said, I'm not going to change my testimony going to the federal court. I'm not going to change it. And then, while I was in the office, working for the company then, I'm a company man now, straight days and over operation. That was the boringest job I could have had, going to work with nothing to do. Everybody knew their jobs well out in the plant, and I had worked out there, shift work, making more money, and I was making good money, but you had ever had a job you hated to go to work for, and that was one. So they said, well, we don't need you no more. I said, okay, I know where I'm going in July the 1st, and they knew that, going back to the sheriff's office. So, in the meantime, they let me go, around February that month, that year. April, the legislature met. And I went to the legislature as the first black assistant sergeant at arms, 1972. I worked in the chamber, and that's the year Governor Edwards got elected, Edwin Edwards. While I was working as an assistant sergeant at arms, Dr. Leon Nettleman, who was the president of Southern at the time, told me, Honore, he knew me from the sheriff's office before. He said, I can't even get a copy of the Southern University budget from this legislature. He was the president of Southern. I can't get a copy of the budget for Southern University. So this was 72.
No respect.
Yeah, no respect. And that's when the demonstration started in 72, where they eased on up until November 16, 1972, where we was going on campus, and I did an interview in New York for the 72 incident at Southern. And I was up there.
He was up there when the shooting.
I was up there when everything started. Yeah.
What happened? I know the student was demonstrating for just to get some things done around it.
Right, they wanted some things done. And I knew that Dr. Nettleman had told me in that April that he couldn't even get a copy of the budget for Southern in 72. And the students was demonstrating, and we had gone on campus as uniform deputies. I was a lieutenant then. I didn't wear no uniform. I put on a uniform jacket and shirt at least, and I had on jeans, tan jeans. And I went home when they was headed for Southern from the parish prison to.
What brought the sheriff department?
Well, we had gotten a call from the Southern that saying they had the president hostage. That they had Nettleman hostage in the administration building. So we said, let's go. Everybody, I didn't say let's go, but Fred Slimer was in charge, even though he had a chief deputy there. He was doing making the decision, and we had the sheriff there. Fred Slimer was in charge. Who had by that time made lieutenant colonel. He used to be a major.
Al Amos is the sheriff now.
Right, Al Amos was the sheriff.
Who you thought was a pretty fair man.
Right, I thought he was a pretty fair man. And when I was standing there when I saw Bobby Crow, and as a state police, and all the state was in uniform. They were better organized. They were better trained. Because the sheriff had just took off in July the 1st of 72, and he was hiring friends of his, and a lot of these people wasn't even trained. So when Bobby Crow, the students were standing in the front of the administration building on the step. Bobby Crow leaned down and rolled a tear gas canister toward the student, hoping it would go off.
And Bobby Crow was he?
State police.
He was a state police officer.
Right, he was state police. One of the students reached down and picked it up and threw it back over toward us, and it exploded. When it exploded, all the deputies and everything thought somebody was shooting. And they had Big Bertha, the big blue state police van. I was standing there in front of it.
You stand in front of it?
Right side, the side. It was the side of it.
But why would they bring the Big Bertha?
A show of force.
A military.
Yeah, a show of force. And shots rang out, tear gas went everywhere. And when the smoke cleared, the tear gas cleared, the kids, they left a pathway for them to run toward the new administration building. Toward Harding Boulevard. they started going there when the smoke cleared. I looked at those two bodies laying up there, and I thought it kind of looked like mannequins, man. You know, a mannequin in a store here, they just steal. And I walked up there and looked at those two kids. And somebody said, they knew him, somebody identified him, said, well, you and Dad go to his room. He lived in Granderson Hall on the second or the third floor, went to his room. But one of them, the name was Leonard Brown. I had a first cousin named Leonard Brown at the time. And the other one was Denver Smith. Got his wallet and what have you, turned it over. One of them was dead before they left the scene. One shotgun. The FBI come in, counted all the buckshot that was come out of the guns, you know, out of the shell, and found almost all of them. One shot did that.
One shot killed two people?
Yeah. And so the FBI interviewed everybody, never talked to me at all.
They didn't want to know your story, right? They
never talked to me. And they determined the shots come from a group of 6 deputies. Well, one black was in the group out of 6 deputies. But they determined where the shot came from, by the angles, you know, all the scientific stuff. But they never said they could pinpoint nobody at the end of the day. And I had a feeling from that day that the students had gotten killed at Kent State before that, when the National Guard had killed them. And they never found out or never charged anybody, and I just had a feeling, I said, I feel they know who did it. But they never was going to turn him in.
And they never called you to
Never, I never talked to him.
But you don't know who actually killed him.
No, I don't really know who actually killed him. I always had a feeling that nobody went there with the intent to kill.
Okay.
I had that feeling. But I saw when I walked up to the building, they had shotgun, bullet holes, I wouldn't say shotgun, bullet holes all up on 3rd story. It wasn't a 2-story building, it was up off the ground. All up in the windows and stuff, way above the head.
They shot that many shots?
Yeah, well, there was a bunch of shots being fired.
So thank God it wasn't more students died.
Right. Just thank God one more student died. And that big truck was standing behind me.
Big Bertha.
Big Bertha. It was rocking with tear gas and shells coming out of it.
They was firing them?
Out of the windows of that thing, yeah.
They was firing through Big Bertha?
Right. Firing out of it.
And Big Bertha was what?
With a big a military-style steel vehicle, window tires covered, and he was in the windows, in the portal, looking out the window with gun barrels.
So they got guns sticking out through the window.
Right.
A Big Bertha.
Right. And when that thing was firing, I looked back at it, it was rocking. You know, from the shotgun blows and all of that.
And this came from the guy, who was the guy named through the tear gas?
No, he wasn't at that, but it was Bobby Crow through the tear gas.
Bobby Crow through the tear gas.
Rolled the tear gas can.
And the student just rolled it back.
No, the student picked it up and threw it back.
Threw it back
over our heads. And that's when it exploded. The tear gas exploded first.
So the tear gas normally explode? That's what it normally
Yeah, I guess he was expecting it to explode when he got to the student, when he rolled it on the sidewalk.
Okay,
But it didn't explode before then. The guy picked it up. Tall guy, and threw it back.
Threw it back.
And that's when it exploded in the air.
And they just started shooting.
Just started shooting. That's when all hell broke loose. And I had opportunity here recently, the guy was doing a cold case study.
Yeah, I saw that interview.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to read over some of the FBI files. The FBI came out and said how many shotguns was there, how many machine guns was up there, how many rifles was up there. They had a count of everything. And if they could pick out that the shot came from within a group where 7 deputies stood, 6 deputies, I mean. 1 black was in the 6. They interviewed all of them. They would know who did that shooting. But I don't think the sheriff's office would give him up. That was my feeling from the start. It would not let anybody be charged with that crime. And that's my feeling today. The FBI knew who did it. But the sheriff's office did not do it.
You bet just moved up into the captain ranks and just got back in the sheriff department, and to have that kind of experience,
Right,
just getting back, and a former student of Southern University.
right. I was a former student of Southern.
What was the impact on you?
Well, you know, I saw this when Southern, when that happened, it immediately started saying that students got to go home. And students was hustling, trying to get their belongings to leave campus. They didn't have nowhere to go. Some of them, you know, could call their parents and they said, we're going to take over the campus, we're going to shut the campus down. We're going to leave the state police. And they had state police from different troops. And that's, you know, I mean, troops, different areas of the state there. And we're going to assign these state police to keep an eye on Southern while it's closed. And I was assigned to protect Dr. Nettle. There was some deputies assigned out there to his house on Harding Boulevard. And I was flexible to go because I wasn't assigned to any patrol unit. And I was just intelligence working kind of on my own. And you should have seen the derogatory remarks that the state police left in the dormitories on the classroom.
Or when they were there by themselves?
When they were there by themselves.
They wrote all kinds.
All kinds. And the worst...
State police.
State police was the one protecting the campus. And the worst troop that stayed up there, looked like the area they covered was Troop H out of Leesville. They don't have a Troop H anymore. But the worst set of troopers who wrote a lot of that stuff on was from Troop H at the time. They don't have it, but Troop H was headquartered in Leesville.
So when the students came back to all that graffiti.
All over everything.
So they had to repaint everything.
Yep. Repaint.
And nobody ever talked about it or
no.
Didn't charge anything for that.
No. But I told you, there was a daily conversation on the radio with the state police using the N-word. I guess that was it.
I mean, just hearing that. So after that activity or situation, the state police, the conversation escalated, or they kind of.
Well, I guess they kind of. By that time, we've gone to separate communication systems.
By that time.
But when the sheriff Amos came in, we went to a different communication system.
And the state police is under the authority of the governor.
Right. So in 1972, we'll go back to the sheriff's office, and I couldn't get promoted. Couldn't get the captain because Colonel Sloan, he was Mays back at the time. I stopped him and said, well, he hadn't been to school, sheriff. He can't go be no captain. So and then the situation at Southern happened in November. So we didn't have anybody, to my knowledge, in the Law Enforcement Institute. So the next year, 1973, I went to the Law Enforcement Institute, which was I think 12-week school, as the first black to go to the institute from the sheriff's office. And when I first got hired at the sheriff's office, there was nobody black going to any schools. So I got hired in 1965. They hired Boatner in 1965, right after me, to work the patrol, but then they let him go. And December 1st, 1966, they hired James London, which happened to be my wife's brother.
Okay. Your new wife.
So my new wife's brother, yeah. But I knew him from way back, from elementary school too. So, and he stayed with me 1 month, December 65. January 1st of 66, the sheriff's office hired 4 blacks. Albert Anderson, Joseph Ellick, Charles Slan, and Booker. So Booker was a big guy, 300 pounds, 400 pounds or something. Joseph Booker. They hired 4 at the same time. London took 2 deputies with him. They assigned 2 with him and 2 with me to train those. That would have given us 6 black deputies at the sheriff's office January 1st, 1960.
And how many deputies?
Oh, they had several hundred deputies. But it wasn't a big operation, but you know, you had to take in the prison system and the court system, you know, deputies in the court system, the tax system. But out of blacks, we only had 6 black deputies, and this was all for patrol.
So at that time, you would say, if there's a couple of 106, that's 0.5%.
Oh, it was low. The 6 was hired to patrol Scotlandville. So they didn't send none of us to school. They sent us to the parish prison where they had a whole parish. They taught the 6 of us. They sent a lawyer with us. They taught the 6 of us the criminal code.
They taught y'all together. Y'all didn't go.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't
No, we didn't go to none of the schools. They taught us together at the parish prison.
But I want to know, what's your thought about the prison system? You get it's a whole system: the justice system, the prison system, what you call this, the legal system, and the system where the policemen and all these people, the sheriff. What's your views how it works on behalf of us for the whole system?
Well, you know,
I know it serves a purpose,
right?
and there's need for it.
But here again, like I said, when I went to work at the sheriff's office, I told you about the application situation. I couldn't even get an application, and I got a little thing that Channel 9 did a story, Black History Month, 2013 on me, and they, showed the problem I told them about, and they did a little segment on Black History Month in February 2013. I was in the legislature at the time, and they wanted to interview me, and they did. Donovan did a good job on it. But we had some people, and we still got them today, and you can always have them, who always thinking that they'll fight each other, figure one of them gonna get ahead. They'll fight each other. And
in our community.
In our community. And then once the 68 Voting Rights Act and Equal Housing Bill started passing, blacks started moving out of the neighborhood, I should say. The interstate come right through Scotland and split up the neighborhood. Scotland just started going down, deteriorating to some degree. People started moving. The traffic wasn't stopping in Scotland.
So all it was calculated.
Yeah, it was calculated. Our mayor at the time was Woody Dumas, and he lived in Baker. And he said he elevated the highway coming through the mid-city area because it was all white area. He elevated it. Well, you can go back, but when he come up towards Scotland, they started elevating some, and some that was on the ground. Where they just cut neighborhoods off. You can take down there in around College Drive and all of that. They split right through the neighborhoods and on LSU and separated to some degree. And then the other subdivisions started developing these different areas of the parish, and whites was fleeing to those areas, and blacks started following pursuit and going to some of those areas. They were all white. You wasn't allowed to even go through them hardly back then. You want to know what you're doing in the neighborhood.
Even as a sheriff, you couldn't even go patrol the area.
Well, we always concentrated in North Baton Rouge, or Scotlandville, I should say. The sheriff put a patrol unit out in Gus Young Avenue area. He had one unit out there to show that he was the sheriff, and he put a unit anywhere he wanted. The sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the parish.
Yeah, he the only lawful.
Right.
He got all the power.
He has the power. So, he's a tax collector and everything else. Keeper of jail and keeper of inmates and what have you. But I've had a full life, and always another thing. I used to go back and tell kids. I went to the Law Enforcement Institute. I got promoted to captain while I was in school. I was 29 years old. And when I come out, they had the substation right open. So, I was a captain at the substation, the only black captain at the substation, in any substation, and the only one, at the time we only had 2 lieutenants, black lieutenants at the sheriff's office in 73. And, and I used to tell people, 20 years ago I was across the street at North Scotlandville Elementary as a school crossing guard. And I was a captain over there, and now I'm a real captain across the street with 35 full-time deputies working for me. And that was the first time the sheriff's office integrated the cars, that I had six white deputies assigned to me at that time, and they had to ride with each other. And so...
Ain't nobody took your badge this time either.
No, nobody took it, but the chief deputy took it one time.
The chief deputy took it.
But I was so outspoken. I went back to the sheriff's office. It's the third time it was the third time I went to the sheriff's office. And I was a fighter for equality out there. And I used to say, they come to Scotland one time, the narcotics division, and raided a place, took 22 people and put them in jail. Said it was gambling. And gambling had a specific thing you had to meet, element you had to meet. You got to be cutting the pot as a game, it's a business. But these guys was shooting dice at a club, and they said one man in there had heroin on him. He had thrown on the pool table. They were shooting dice on the pool table, so they took all of them to jail. He woke an old man up about 80 years old and took him to jail. He was asleep. So I went down, I got a call that morning. I was over the substation. I went down and talked to the guys and see what was happening. They all got arrested for disturbing the peace, concealed weapons, and what have you. And I called the judge, and the judge said, he was going to set bond for them so they could get out, because the club owner called me and said, these guys got to go to work tomorrow, and he'll let them put all us in jail, and none of us had anything on us, wasn't gambling, wasn't nobody cutting no pot, and so the judge started letting them out. But I had one guy, I never asked that guy, and that guy's dead now. I never asked him whether he had heroin under the table, whether he had thrown it under the table or not. It wasn't my concern, it was the way it was done. I was a captain up there, and then the sheriff took the attitude, well, it's Alabama. Well, we don't like to tell nobody, because they have a way to get messages out to the other people that we coming. And I said, oh, he don't trust none of us then. So I started reading hell about it. So they convicted the guy, sent him to prison for it, and I testified in court as to what I saw. They didn't ask me whether he was guilty or... Well, I was a witness. They called me as a witness on what happened when they called me. I went downtown, talked to the guy. We never bring this guy's name up. I never talked to him. I called the judge and tried to help him get these people out. That's what I said on the witness stand. After the guy convicted him, the judge convicted him, and the judge told me, you're going to be in trouble. I said, no, here's a judge telling me I'm going to be in trouble. I'm in uniform testifying. So that same day, I said the same day, a week later, here come the chief deputy. He said, Captain Honore, I'm at the office and I'm headed home. They called me back to come to the office on Roosevelt. Say, who in charge? I said, I'm in charge. No, I mean, what lieutenant you got in charge right now? And I told him. He said, well, call him in, because I come up here to suspend you, to take your gun and your badge. I said, who sent you? I can't tell you. I said, you the number 2 man and you can't tell me who sent you? No, I can't tell you. But all I know, I was told to suspend you and let somebody drop you off at home. But now I've been writing letters to the sheriff, raising hell about the way blacks was treated. And so I got suspended. I wrote the sheriff a letter. Said, why was I suspended? Oh, you know the reason. That's the only reason. That's the only thing he put on the letter. You know the reason. You know the reason. And he sent me a letter. I had a copy of that letter too.
But you know the reason.
You know the reason. But here's the thing. In 1975, I believe, I was in charge of the substation in Scotlandville. Southern had moved to play football in Memorial Stadium because they were remodeling Southern University football stadium. I was working a football game. I had 40 deputies, uniformed deputies working on me. I had my uniform. All of us was in uniform. City police was monitoring the traffic outside, on the interstate. We were right there on the interstate. One of the reserve deputies was black, walked all the way to the southern end of the stadium, and told me, he said, I was trying to park my car at that captain, and the city police gave me a lot of static. So I said, well, let's walk back there and see what he's talking about. Come outside the stadium, and he starts screaming and hollering at me. I said, wait a minute, let me go tell him who's in your charge. He told me a lieutenant. So let's walk over here to the lieutenant. Now, he had
You in uniform?
I'm in uniform, full uniform, with a gun on my side and everything. I'm in full uniform. 40 deputies was in uniform almost. And he had a female sitting in the car that was a youngster, looked like it was a mob patrol city police car. So on our way, the lieutenant was over on the east side of the stadium, the traffic lieutenant. They was handling traffic in the cars parked. All we had was inside security. I got 40 people working for me. On my way over there, me and the other black guy, the other reserve deputy, he was in plain clothes. And this guy still hollering and talking, and we walking. And I stepped over a puddle of mud or something to get on the sidewalk. He pulled his gun and put on me. And then he just stood there and looked at me.
The city police?
City police in uniform.
Just the sight of you.
The sight of me, and all the blacks were still coming there to see the game. They was walking in there to see the game, get in the stadium.
Yeah, so they saw this too.
Yeah.
So city police pull a gun on a sheriff officer just because you did what?
We was walking to see his lieutenant.
Oh, you know, right? You know,
Yeah.
right? You know what you do, right?
So there wasn't no confrontation or nothing, but I think he got nervous. And we walked on round to the lieutenant. I called the Slyman at the time, who was the major at the time. He said, he did what? I said, he pulled a gun on me. And so we walked over there. His lieutenant sent him home. We went to Judge Frank Ford's house that night, signed a warrant for his arrest. And they put him in jail for aggravated assault. Made the headlines. About 2-3 days later, I'm sitting at the substation behind the desk. They say, we got a warrant for your arrest. For what? For aggravated assault. City police said, you tried to pull a gun on him.
You tried?
Yeah, you tried. I said, oh no, not me. But Howard Kidder was the chief of police at the time, and he was talking about running for sheriff. He was talking about running against Al Amos, who was the sheriff. And so they felt it was a breakdown because it was a war against the city police and the sheriff's office. And we were just a byproduct of it. So they put me in, they called me and said, well, we got a warrant for you. So okay, the city police came up to the substation. He said, come on, go down, ride down. I drove my car, was in uniform, full uniform. Went over to the city police. They had a city booking desk and a sheriff's office booking desk. And city police took my information and all that, fingerprint, and charged me. And I walked over to the sheriff's office by myself. Took my gun off and left it at the sheriff's secretary's desk. He was right outside the sheriff's office, Left my office, told her to put my gun in the locker, rode upstairs to the jail and fingerprinted me up there. And I said, I need to take a picture. He said, no, Captain, you don't need to take no picture. We know who you are. I went back down, got my gun, and come on back to work. Went on back to work. I went to jail in a uniform. And after all these years, I done went to jail and made it all the way to captain. And then I still go to jail.
You still, what they say, what they call that, everything white, black, huh?
Yeah.
You don't even matter, huh? You a sheriff. And
Captain Bob on the shoulder, full uniform.
It don't stop, huh?
That still didn't stop you from going to jail, so don't fool yourself. So anyway, after about a year, the sheriff and Kidder had kind of mended their fences, and the sheriff called me. He said, Dalton, you want to drop them charges against the city police, and we're going to drop this thing? I said, the sheriff. I said, the gun was drawn on me. It wasn't drawn on the sheriff's office. I said, I'm going to court. I'm going to court. Well, me and the chief and settle things out now. He said he ended running for sheriff. I said,
well, they done settle things out.
Yeah, they didn't settle it out. I said, but the gun was drawn on me. Every judge in the 19th Judicial District had recused himself from the case. Okay. He was not going to take the case in that courtroom. So
they didn't want to get caught up.
They didn't want to get in the fire between the sheriff and the city police. Sheriff, and because the chief said he wasn't going to run. And Amber was kind of hypertensive.
Who was the chief at the time?
Howard Kidder. Okay. Howard Kidder. So we went to court. And every judge, wasn't any black judges at the time, every judge in the Judicial District, 19th Judicial District, recused himself. So they got a judge out of Plaquemines Parish, in South Louisiana. And he came up here and he listened at the case, he didn't make any comments. I got on the stand. And going into the courtroom, Mary Olive Pearson, who was an attorney for the sheriff's office, she said, Dalton, so I know you're a good witness. I've talked to a bunch of lawyers and cases under you. And he said that, but I was witness, I was star witness. Willie Garner, said he was going to say anything they wanted him to say if they gave him a job. At the sheriff's office. So,
and who was Willie Garner?
He was a black guy. He was my neighbor. I could look out my door and look into his front door, where I was living. That's how close he lived to me. That's true. I knew who he was.
And so you thought you had a great witness.
Yeah. He got in there and said, well, I wasn't having no problem at all. He said that, then you went to go get Captain Honore to tell him that you was having a problem with the city police, arguing with you and belittling you about parking your car where it was, and you showed him your badge and all that. He said, that's fine. I went to get him, but I wasn't having no problem. See, Honore had a reputation of getting rid of people. He was firing people. I couldn't fire nobody. I was a difference too, just like everybody else.
And Willie Garner said that about you?
Yeah, he said that about me. And then the judge ruled both of us not guilty. Got him walked out, never made a comment on the case. 2 weeks later, Willie Garner was going to work at the sheriff's office.
So he about to take your job, huh?
But and I done stood up there with a gun drawn on me, fixing to get my behind shot off.
Because of him?
Because of him. And he said he wasn't having no problem at all. But he went to work at the sheriff's office.
Did y'all talk about that after?
No, I never said another word to him. He moved out the neighborhood, and I run into him back to, I guess maybe 8, 10 years ago at the Veterans Administration when I was there, and just asked him how he was doing. He was doing fine. But he moved out the neighborhood after that.
But y'all had to work together?
We used to work together, yeah. He sure did. He became a regular deputy. And I've worked at the sheriff's office 4 different times. I'm going to work, try to fight out there. It had some incidents. When I went back to work in 72, became a captain. I was a captain at 29 years old, running the substation. Well, I could see myself in the military. I wanted to be a leader. And when the sheriff came in, Al Amos came in, white deputies were still working at Southern, but we wasn't working at LSU. And I asked her, I said, well, we need to have some, work the football game at LSU or different events at LSU. And no, I said, why we can't work down there? Well, we getting ready for it. We getting ready for it. I'm talking to Colonel Sloan. I'm not talking to Al Amos now. And he said, Honore, every time you talk to me, it's black or white. I said, well, Colonel, it's black or white out here. That's what it's going. That's what it is. That's what it's going to be. When I became the captain, I said, we're using the terminology of black. This, I said, we want to start using writing our reports with black on it as identifying a black male. Well, you can't do that. I said, well, you identify a white male with white. And I come out of the military using Caucasian and Negro. And I said, I had to change to using the word colored when I come to work at the sheriff's office. And, well, we can't change. This is probably 1975. And everybody, going to, we were black then. I wanted to tell the deputy to write their reports using the word black to identify the Negro race. Can't do it. Why? Well, I got to get in touch with the FBI to see how they file their report. I said, we know how they file their reports. It was the longest before they started using the term black at the sheriff's office. So I said, we're going to want to work LSU's activities. So I'll never forget, they called me one day at the substation. I used to have to call all the deputies that I needed to work. Mick Jagger was starting his world tour at LSU. And he said, well, we need about 6 black deputies. 6 deputies or 8 deputies from your substation to work the Mick Jagger show. And that was the first time blacks had worked at LSU. And so Mick Jagger came down. He started his world tour and he started it at LSU.
Oh, it started at LSU?
Yeah, he started his first concert at LSU. A United States tour, I should say. And he started at LSU. This was in the 70s. And I was a captain. I worked the detail. They put black deputies, they put them down on the floor in case of fight or something, Rick. Black deputies would be the first thing. But it was mixed with white deputies too down on the floor. But I stood up in the stand, me and the white lieutenant who was over working with the program too, the extra duty program. And we just sat there and watched the show.
You enjoyed the show?
Yeah, enjoyed the show. So then here come a group. Marvin Gaye was coming to LSU for performance. They needed 25 deputies to work the show. So the Walsh, who I rode with out there, lieutenant, he had made a major by this time. Say, Captain, I need 8 deputies from the substation to work the Marvin Gaye show. I said, well, we need 25 deputies going to be working, and we just need 8 from you. And I said, why we can't get 12? And he said, well, you can't get 12. I said, well, we don't plan to work it. We don't plan to work it. So yeah, we're going to work it. He said, I'm going to have to report this to the colonel, which was Sliming at the time. He said, he was the man in charge. So I said, I told all the deputies, it's the only time I worked at the sheriff's office that the deputies, black deputies stood with me. I said, if they call you to ask you about working the Marvin Gaye show, tell them you got something to do. I said, but if they give you a direct order, then you got to do what they got to say about a direct order. I said, but don't accept those details at LSU. They only wanted 8 black deputies to work it. Out of 25, all I asked for was 4 more. He wouldn't give them to me. So Marvin Gaye was down there on, I think, Sunday night. Saturday, they called me about 10 o'clock at night, Colonel Sliming and Chief Reeves. Come down to the sheriff's office. We need to talk with you. This was Saturday night. Say, we having a problem getting the deputies to work the Marvin Gaye show. I said, I don't know what problem you have. The guy said he don't want to work it. But you done told him. I said, yes, I did. Mm-hmm. But I told him if they give you a direct order, if y'all give them a direct order to go ahead and perform your duties. So they called a few deputies. Deputies said, well, we can't work. Deputies didn't know I was there. Said, well, we can't work. Oh, I got something to do. You know, and he said, well, look like it's going to be a hard problem for you for us to get the people. So we got to have provided at least 25 deputies to the Coliseum down there, you know. I said, well, they don't want, I had taken my gun and my badge. I left all that at home. I said, I don't want to walk out here with no gun at the sheriff's office. And everybody would arrest me if they took my badge, and I'm going to walk out with a gun. They're going to say, he carried a concealed weapon or something. I said, I went down there without any of that. It was 10 o'clock at night.
Look, now you a sheriff, but you got to play in your own.
I said, I don't want to walk out this building and have a gun on me, and then they arrest me.
Now you the captain.
And I'm the captain.
You ain't done nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong.
But you better be prepared for anything.
Right. So Jules Newman called me that night, and he said, Honore said, Al Amos called me, the sheriff, and said, you won't let the men work the show tomorrow. I told you, whatever I told, you know, that we wanted a certain percentage of the show. And I said, before they put all the black deputies down there, and the white guys were sitting around watching the show, and if anything broke out, we'd be in mixed fudge. So he said, Al Amos said, but you called the deputy not to work. I said, and this is why. So the sheriff called back, and he said, Dalton, the sheriff told me to tell you he's going to hire 25 deputies out the sheriff's fund, which was strictly illegal, to pay them so we could have 50 deputies down there. And they want you to help them get the deputies. I said, there ain't going to be no problem for me to come up with the deputies. You know, I had 40-some reserve deputies working for me out there, and 35 full-time deputies. And so I started calling the deputies, and the next night, the next day I had all of what they wanted, you know, we had half and half. And the colonel showed up, which was Slimer. The major showed up, which was Walsh. And they work in the detail to see how it goes. And Marvin Gaye put a hell of a show on.
Oh, shoot, let's get it on.
Marvin Gaye put a hell of a show.
Let's get it on.
This was packed. And the sheriff said he had to pay them 25 deputies out the sheriff's salary fund, which was, you know, you couldn't take the money from the sheriff's salary fund and pay no extra duty deputies for performing duty. But I said, we had a good time. And I said, that's the only time the black deputy stood up with me. Out of all the years I've put at the sheriff's office. So about 2 weeks later, we were out here chasing some guy who was raping women up in Scotland. And I was working at night. You know, I work like I want to at night. You know, I live right here in Scotland. I'm at home. So we find somebody that was running from it that we thought it was rape. So we take him to jail. Get down there, and I go in the back of the oven, and I see one of my co-workers, black co-workers, back there talking to the chief and Colonel Slimer. And talking about giving him my job as captain. And so he refused the job.
Oh.
He refused it. That guy's still a friend of mine today.
Who was that?
Silas Gerald.
Yeah.
But Silas stayed there long enough to move all the way up to Lieutenant Colonel at the sheriff's office.
But you know, but that shows us too that even when you got great intentions, the guys that want to stand with you, you don't know what kind of situation they're in. You don't know what they're going through at home, the financial situation.
Right.
So you go cut a deal with people like the guy like Willie Garner, who sold you out.
Yeah.
And you know, because he needed that job. So it's hard to say what's going on, but you get more if you stand together.
But you do get more. And Silas is a good friend of mine today because he didn't take the job. Mm-hmm. And but then when he finally made captain, and he made captain to run the substation too, and he made mayor of uniform patrol. Litchfield had came in by that time. Elmer Litchfield. And I worked on the Litchfield a while too, and I Al Amos. When Al Amos called me, the sheriff, I was running the grocery store. I left the sheriff's office 6 months later. When they moved me, I kept my rank, but they moved me to the parish prison. Slyman wanted to demote me, make me a lieutenant, and move me out to the Klein Peter substation. Sheriff said, no, I'm not going to demote him. I'm going to move him to the parish prison as a captain, and they moved the lieutenant who was over at the central substation to the parish prison as a lieutenant. And we was riding together on the paddy wagon hauling prison. I got a $75 a month raise. It was the principals. Here I am, that moved me to the parish prison from Scotlandville and gave me a $75 a month raise. And I said, I bet it's time for me to move on and look for another job. So this was in 78. And January 79, I left the sheriff's office and took my retirement money and started and opened up a business store right down the corner of Rosewall and Senior.
Yeah, I don't see that. I used to come to that store all the time.
I opened up a business right there.
The grocery store.
Right, it was a grocery store. But while I'm running the grocery,
but you had food there too?
I had food unlimited. It was an old abandoned Exxon station.
Okay.
And Exxon had put $80,000 in that corner. They kept a running record of it when they bought the property with the building, the concrete, the tanks, and all of that. They had spent $80,000 on that site. When I got ready to buy, they sold it to me for $40,000. And then I was talking to my banker who was working for the bank, Frank Williams, who was working for Capital Bank at the time. I'd already talked to a banker, wouldn't loan me any money. And so Frank said, well, we'll loan the money from Capital Bank. So Frank said, what do you think it's going to take? I said, well, they want to sell the building for $40,000. And I said, and they invested $80,000 in it. I said, it's going to take another $40,000 for me to get it up and open and all of that, and stock and inventory and all that. Okay, Capital Bank took a first mortgage on the building, a second mortgage on my house, a second mortgage on my apartment for $40,000, $45,000, something like that. And I got the building, added on to it, put a deli in there and everything, and was making money with it because that was the only route. I knew Exxon was going to. They bought the corner at Blunt and Senior. They was going to build a station up there, and the interstate was going to bypass me in 10 years. I knew that, but I was making money. I had a cash flow. I started cashing checks of $3 million a year, just cashing checks. And everybody going north stopped there because that was the only Exxon station. I was taking credit cards, and this was in '79. I opened up April '79, and by December '79, I had a $600,000 cash flow through that with gasoline and alcohol in the business.
And wasn't it right next to where Hall's Funeral Home is?
Right, it was across the street.
Right across the street from Hall's.
Right across the street. So this was in '79. I added on to the building in '80. I put a deli on there and I added another 1,800 feet onto the building, and it was making money. It was making money. So then I went to Exxon about buying a piece of property further north, and they wouldn't sell it to me. I said, we'll sell it, but we're going to have it deed restricted. You can't put another station up there, because I knew they was going to put one on the corner of Blunt and Senior. Well, they eventually sold that to corner for Blunt and Senior. The guy, classmate of mine, put a car wash up there. And he sold it to Murphy's Oil. That's who's there now. Good location, right where the interstate.
Oh, yeah, right. I know you're
It's
talking
a
about.
tremendous location.
Great location.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I go out and I say, well, I'm gonna go with be a Goodyear tire dealer. That's what we needed. In Scotlandville, I know the kind of money was passing through Scotland, but it wasn't staying but a couple of hours, they say. You had nothing to spend it on in Scotlandville. By this time, I got made a loan and built a 4-bay Goodyear car care center. And
Where you built that at?
right there next to the store. Cost me $250,000. Opened it up in '84. Goodyear had the state contract. I was the only black franchise dealer in the state. Goodyear called me one time and said, look, we got the helicopter, not the helicopter, the Goodyear blimp gonna be viewing an LSU football game tonight. And we'd like for you and your family to ride on the blimp. So I take my family. One of the kids didn't go, so somebody got to be here to tell the story. So my kids, teenagers now. So we go over to the airport. So what y'all here for? We're gonna ride the blimp. Well, we don't have to know nothing about it. I had to call my salesman. The salesman said, yeah, they're a franchise Goodyear dealer. They're supposed to ride that blimp.
They expect you to look like you.
Yeah, they wasn't expecting no. And I was the only black in the state with a franchise. And so we got on the blimp, and the guy said, the operator said, look, it was supposed to be a 30-minute ride. I'm gonna take y'all to the river. I'm gonna take you all the way down over LSU, all over the stadium, and spend an hour. They spent an hour and 15 minutes with us on the blimp. So y'all gonna get to see the city on the blimp. But I didn't know how high you could, I ride the blimp for about an hour and 15, 20 minutes.
So they rode y'all all through. Now you said that also that when you ride the blimp, that you can literally hear people talking?
If the blimp was flying close enough when we took off from the airport to hear the people talking on the ground.
You can hear the conversation?
Right, you can hear the conversation.
Or you just heard voice? Or you
no, we can hear the conversation.
So sound.
My wife took all kind of pictures. You know, she wanted, had cameras and she loved taking pictures. She took all kind of pictures of our house when we flew over the area, over Scotland, all the way down the river. We got over the river. I said, what about if somebody shoots this thing? He said, that'd just be like emptying the Mississippi River with a cup. Don't worry about it.
Oh, a couple of holes.
They ain't gonna get in the air, gonna go quiet. But we rode the blimp all the way down to LSU Stadium. We were all over LSU with the blimp, come up Baton Rouge, and back to the airport. We spent almost an hour and 15, 20 minutes on that blimp.
That'd be pretty interesting.
It really was. And so.
Now we got to talk a little bit about you being the state representative. Now, how do you get? Now, you done retired from the sheriff.
Well, let me tell you. So one day when I was at my business, the sheriff called me, Al Amos. Said, Dalton said, I'm getting rid of the guy who I got at the substation. He's not doing a good job. I'm gonna put Silas, sheriff. That's the guy who they didn't take the job when they offered him to take his job. He said, no, I ain't gonna take it. I ain't gonna do that. So he said, well, I want you to come back to work for him. I said, look, Sheriff, I'm not in the grocery store. No. I said, I'm not going to sell whiskey on one end of the street and put people in jail on the other end. He said, I'm going to make you the captain, one of the captains. I said, well, the substation don't have a one captain out of them anyway. I said, let him, he can handle the job. Well, I want you to help him if you can. I said, well, what else you got down there? He said, come down and see me tomorrow. And I'll see what I got. So I go down there and he's sitting in his office. He had been in and out of the hospital. He said, well, go over there and tell him you can go back to work for me. Go back over there to the criminal process division, work it like you want to. And
work it like you want.
Yeah, and I was just serving papers then, running the store. And he died. He never come back into that sheriff's office. He died after he left that day. I think it was the last person he hired, physically hired from the sheriff's office.
So he hired you.
Right, he hired me back.
And that's the last time you saw him again? That's the last
time I saw him alive again. He died after that. But he had spent a whole lot of time in the hospital because he was sick. So, and it was a big job for the sheriff too. Now that job was a big job in the sheriff church. So then Colonel Slyman comes up to be the sheriff now because he was the second man now. He the sheriff. So he gave me a $75 raise, and I'm working for him now. This is the man that asked me all these questions, about the sheriff's office, about what agency, what group I belong to, and all of these. And I know they had blacks running back telling him everything. But they never could go back and tell him nothing about Honore, because Honore gonna follow the law. Live by the code. They had nothing bad to say on Honore. So he became sheriff, and then he endorsed Litchfield to finish out the unexpired term of the sheriff. Sheriff Al Amos died in office, and then Litchfield became sheriff. I was working for him, And so I added on this Goodyear Tire Center, and dumped $250,000 in the building and equipment and inventory. So I said, I'm gonna have to leave because I'd like to sell tires to the sheriff's office. Well,
it's some business
yeah,
here.
you know, it's all business. Well, they bought a few sets of tires. I was doing inspections on the cars, and that didn't last long. And so, in the 07 years, you know, Litchfield stayed there a long time. And Litchfield was the first Republican sheriff we got it. And Litchfield, blacks started moving under Litchfield, you know, being promoted in different divisions and stuff like that. They started a little more.
As I met Major Reginald Brown.
Major Reginald Brown, yeah. Well, Major Reginald Brown was under Al Amos. Al Amos had promoted.
Oh, okay, good.
And the sheriff, the new sheriff, Litchfield, you know, he seemed like a fair man and all of this. And he started doing good, moving blacks around. And I heard him say one day at the Scholarville Plaza, I wasn't with the sheriff's office. You know, I was running my business, and I had an invitation to come down there. They were dedicating stuff to me. And somebody in the audience said, well, we got Major Gerald here, the major of Scholarville. The sheriff stopped him and said, this is a Major Gerald, but he's a major at the sheriff's office all over the parish, not just Scholarville. I heard him correct somebody. You know, I pay attention to everything. So, but anyway, when he held office a long time, and he wasn't hiring no ex-deputies. Because if he'd been hiring ex-deputies, I'd have gone back under him to work when I got ready to go back. You see, after the business closed, I closed my business 10 years after I went into business. And I moved down the street at the pump where they had P&S and took that business for 6 years. And leased it, you know, I didn't change nothing, just leased it. And stayed there 6 years. And my kids got grown and married, and I said, well, I'm getting out of this business. They moved on out of the house, and I said, I'm not going to come. It was a one-man operation down there at the Cape and the kiosk. I said, I'm not going to be down here and people know where I am. My wife at home by herself. So, in the meantime, Litchfield said he wasn't hiring nobody. And by this time, I'm working at the parish attorney's office. I got 15, 16 years there. When he said he started hiring ex-deputies back, well, it was too much time invested in the city by then. So he stayed there, and then he stepped down and he promoted Greg Ferry to be the sheriff. And the sheriff election was coming up in 07. And I said, well, I got to run for sheriff, and I've been watching the voter increase of black participation in East Baton Rouge Parish. And I ran for city councilman out here. I had ran for state representative in 79, and didn't win either seat. So I said, if I'm gonna run for sheriff, I better run now. But once the sheriff get in there, he's not gonna get out. So I decided I had to retire from the city. I had 20 years there, and run for sheriff in 07. When I came out and said I was gonna run for sheriff, and I knew Sid. I was going to support him to start with, but I said, no, if I'm going to run, I better run now. And lo and behold, they put a milligan in the race to cut the black vote. Kip Holder had just got elected mayor, and he was married to my niece before that. He used to rent from me in the apartment. He stayed in one, rented from me. And I used to help him all the way with his campaigns, with his financing, with his income and all of that. And the first thing he was hot out here, he got out and the establishment told him to support Sid. Sid was a Democrat at the time. The DPAC was never would get together, you know, the Democratic Executive Committee for the parish. I said, I want to come before y'all and show my qualifications and all that. No, they didn't do it. And after the election, Sid was a Democrat. Kip Holden took him by hand to churches and introduced him. And some of these black preachers who didn't even want me to say nothing. He didn't even want to introduce me, and I didn't go to the church. They told me, you know, they wasn't going to do that. I've never seen black preachers run from me like I saw in that sheriff's race. And because the mayor had him by the hand. And I told the black candidate in the race, I said, look, man, I said, I'm trying to win the sheriff job. I'm trying to get a position, he told me. He wasn't interested in the sheriff race. He was just interested in cutting the black votes. And the polls had shown, but I was going to get the black votes, and me and Fairreed was going to be in the runoff. And we figured if Bobby Jr. would have won the governor's office, the Republicans wasn't coming back. And they didn't. And Sid won the race. Now I went with Fairreed, and
But could you have beat Fairreed at the time?
I think because the parish was all Democrat at the time. We're talking about 16 years ago now.
Okay. And they started making that switch.
Under Bobby Jr. But the Republicans didn't go back to vote. See, Fairreed got 47% of the vote in the first round. He liked to win it in the first round. And I got 13,000 votes. Fairreed got about 47% of the vote. And Milligan picked up another 5,000 or 6,000 votes, black votes. And then, but Sid picked up the majority of the black votes because Kip had him by the hand. And when Sid got to be sheriff that night on the stage, Kip jumping up, screaming, piping, clapping his hands, the sheriff told him, Gotro told him, you're going to be the mayor and I'm going to be the sheriff. Kip thought he was going to run the sheriff's office. I called Kip, the sheriff, I could say that's the best thing you could have told him. You're going to be the sheriff. Couldn't have happened to a finer fellow. They hadn't said words to each other since. And then we talking about 16 years.
They had a fallout that day.
That night.
That day.
And Sid, after 6-8 months, he switched over to the Republican.
Yeah, I remember they wanted the sheriff to go to that building off of Airline Highway, that women's hospital.
Yeah.
The sheriff said, I ain't going there.
But Kip bought that building for the city police.
Where is Kip now? Nobody seen him.
Yeah, he used to live on the next street from me. He's been in the nursing home since he got out of office.
Yeah, that's something. That is something.
And Kip is about 9, 10 years younger than me. He's been in the nursing home since he got out of office. Out of the last 8 years, he's been in the nursing home. Nobody go see, nobody even call his name. And he done nothing for black folks in this town. Nothing. I live in the neighborhood he lived in, grew up in the neighborhood, live a block from it, and he never done nothing.
That's from Scotland, yeah.
And that's from Scotland.
See?
He did this black community totally wrong. And his first 2 kids, a niece and nephew of mine. He was married to my niece. And campaigned harder than anybody out there. And I said, Sheriff Litchfield was a Republican. I said, I don't have no problem with Republicans. But the reason I stayed a Democrat, that's the only way you're going to get elected in the black community.
Right.
If you're going to run in that community, you got to be a Democrat. And I ran for state representative in 7 and 9, and then my wife died in 09. And shortly thereafter, Avon died. And people came to me and said, you want to run for state representative? I said, well, I think I will. I've run for it before. I ran for it and won it. I got to the legislature. And the first thing I tried to do was, the state had found ways to vote for medical marijuana, but they had no ways to dispense it. I brought up the marijuana bill. I didn't have a black in the legislature to support me on it. And then I stepped back, and I told Fred Mills, who was a senator at the time, to go with it, and blacks started supporting me. And all they want to look at me, Honore, you must be full of that smoke or something. You smoking marijuana? I said, never tried a marijuana cigarette in my life. I was served on criminal justice committee, and the same guy was sentenced to life imprisonment for killing a deputy. I didn't know him. I knew some of his family, and they had ruled a case in Alabama where you couldn't sentence a juvenile to life. You had to put some time on it. Where he would be eligible for parole. You just couldn't send nobody to jail for life. And a juvenile couldn't go, and you just say life in prison. So the guy had already been up there for, I guess, 30, 40 years. And we had one black guy out of Shreveport, one of the representatives. Oh, they ought to give him 50 years. I say, 50 years, and the man go in at 17, I say he's an old man, he's 67 then. Then he's eligible for parole, that don't mean he's gonna get it. So we argued that around. They dropped it down to 35, and I think they released it a little lower than that.
Now, what made you decide to push the marijuana deal? Because of
my experiences with it.
Because it caused a lot of young men to go to prison.
Right, a lot of
and lose whatever, and really lose their life.
Right.
Never had a life because of that one joint. So that was your primary reason for passing marijuana?
Trying to get it passed. And I couldn't get a black down there to support me for it. I doubted one black in the legislature to support me on my cause. None.
It had nothing to do with that you smoke marijuana.
I never smoked marijuana in my life.
I'm not looking to do no medical marijuana for myself.
No.
You because of your experience as a law enforcement.
As a law enforcement officer. And I was the only, blacks still don't like law enforcement officers. And while I was in the legislature, the 50th year for the black deputy was at the sheriff's office. I passed a resolution to recognize the black deputies who had joined the sheriff's office following me, to amend the resolution to recognize those guys as trying to mend the fences between law enforcement and the sheriff's office. I invited all the old deputies. I had a resolution. I invited about 10 of them to come down there. I want to present this in front. I invited the sheriff, Sid Gotro. Every black I talked to didn't come. I gave him a proclamation that they was going to get. I passed them out to them and give them to them. Said, I want you to come. We want to recognize you in front of the state legislature. My speech to the legislature when I left the legislature, and I could have still been there, but I said I want to work with a smaller crowd and run for the Senate. Got elected twice for the legislature, for the House, but everybody piled up against me, and and I did that. Sir, I took the attitude I'm going to speak out for those who can't speak for themselves or who are afraid to speak for themselves. I didn't mind speaking. I done retired. My kids grown, and it didn't matter. I was a single man, and they didn't have no bills. So I wasn't dependent on that job. I wasn't dependent on no people for my kids. All my kids was educated.
But unfortunately, you have to really think through that process.
Right.
You can't just make a decision because it's the right thing to do now.
Right. You can't do it, but you can make a decision that's the right thing to do if you know it's been the wrong thing that was done all your life. And so people start saying Honore was out there pushing marijuana. Marijuana used to be legal until 1937. Then they claimed a different schedule. The drug had no medical purpose at all. I flew to Colorado, went to the legislature up there, and it was legal in Colorado. And the guy told me, man, I'll put your picture on national TV if you try this marijuana cigarette. I said, I don't smoke it. I had no encouragement to want to smoke it. Never have. But I've seen so many people railroaded to prison.
But it was a smoking gun.
Yeah.
For the system.
It was. It still is. It still is. And I tell you something else. My last official bill I filed in the legislature was the body camera bill. You think I got any blacks to stand up with me on this? Did you think I got any?
I would have thought so.
Well, I didn't. And I had to fight like hell. I changed it to a resolution, and I had the broom with the mayor. Now she was in the Senate. She did okay it as a resolution to study it. And I had sheriffs down there fighting me, saying, one sheriff said, I got them, they're good, they're excellent. And they come up with all kind of reasons. We can't find this, and we don't know how we're going to store the information. We don't know how we're going to retrieve this. We don't know what's going to be. I just want the people to see how people are being treated out there.
So as a former sheriff officer.
Yeah.
you figure it might be a checkmate.
Exactly.
It might help because the people without that, we gonna continue being treated like slaves.
Exactly. But now Governor Edwards, the current governor, right after that, they eased in the cameras of the state police. They give all them body cameras. But it's been a task that I've been fighting, and all I've ever asked for is the same opportunity as the next fellow. I don't want you to give me nothing. I don't want you to give me a thing. I just want the same opportunity as the next fellow. I get it myself.
Just don't get in my way.
Right. Law enforcement, and I love the sheriff's office. The most interesting work I've ever done. 'Cause I'm in a position to help people. I helped a lot of people in my years in law
So
enforcement.
you truly a servant.
Right. I was a servant of the community. And it's the most interesting work I've ever done. But it's the worst paying job I ever had. So I had to leave the sheriff's office to go find a better to take care of my family. And but it's the most interesting work I've ever done. And I guess if you say if I'm partial to the sheriff's office in East Baton Rouge Parish, I am to a certain degree. The sheriff's office has come a long way from that first night I went out there to work. And I can call names, events, and I saw how I was working then. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I told my son to go to the city police because they always looked at Honore as the man who broke the color barrier at the sheriff's office. And it was about 40 years before they hired another Honore at the sheriff's office. Before they hired another one at the sheriff's office. And I think at the time...
They don't hire them already.
Yeah, and so I told him to go to the city police, and I know the city police had this attitude of civil service and union. And they could do what they want almost. The sheriff got the position, you serve at the pleasure of the sheriff. If he tells you not to do something, you do it again, he just tell you keep going. You're fired. And they've had unions try to infiltrate the sheriff's offices throughout the state or sometimes throughout the country. They can't do it. Because the sheriff is an elected official. And you serve at the pleasure of the sheriff. The sheriff knows he got to keep the citizen at a position where they're satisfied with him. And he's not going to let one guy go out there and disturb his reputation. To give you an example, I was sitting here watching television one night, and they showed a picture of a white ex-deputy in orange uniform. He'd been jailed, they'd say he was jailed, and because he hit an inmate with a chair, fired him. And I texted the sheriff a week or so after that and said, the sheriff's office has changed. I said, when I was captain in charge of the substation, they had an attempted prison break out at the parish prison. I was out of town. The deputies from the substation responded along with the chief deputy. And I said, they had an inmate handcuffed behind. And one of the deputies took a shotgun, butted the shotgun and hit this inmate side of the head. Split the butt on the shotgun. Chief deputy told him where to go to get it fixed.
To get the gun fixed.
Yeah, get the gun fixed. The guy was handcuffed behind. Well, the sergeant I had was a black sergeant. He didn't tell me nothing about it. And a new deputy told me, said what had happened back there about the deputy. Man handcuffed behind and this deputy, this white deputy, hit him side of the head. And the chief deputy didn't say nothing but tell him where to go get the gun fixed. So I went down there when I found it out and told him this guy could not work for me as long as I was in charge of that substation. And his lieutenant was white. He said, well, if he can't work, I can't work either. I said, well, you go too. The chief deputy promoted. Moved him out of the substation and promoted.
Promoted.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Anytime they do something against us,
Yeah.
you're gonna get a promotion.
And I told Sid, I said, the sheriff's office has changed. You can put somebody in jail for hitting somebody unarmed with a chair. And he's a white guy. I don't know what color he is, whether it's female, male, black, or white. But the sheriff's office didn't change.
And they never would have thought to do that.
Never. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't do it.
It's like, how many of us been killed by law enforcement and they just walked into the sunlight?
Right.
Sunset, rather.
Walking, that's right. Wouldn't do it.
But now, what are your views or perspective on, I don't like saying what they call black on black crime, because that's white on white crime too, Asian on Asian crime. But there's a lot more violence in the communities now. How you see that, what you think about all about, how can some of this be corrected?
Well, I came up in a neighborhood, and I told you I came up in avenues, Colton Avenues. Every parent there had a job. Every parent had a job, both husband and wife. And wasn't no welfare back then. Everybody worked. Everybody, living in their own homes. Basically, everybody was trying to buy a house to stay in. But I look back at 1968, when President Lyndon Johnson became president. I kept up with politics when I was a boy. When we got a television in the 50s, when Dwight Eisenhower was running against Adlai Stevens for president. He was the general. While Eisenhower and everybody like that, I started watching TV. We had a TV then in the early 50s. And I started watching it in 1957 when Little Rock started integrating their schools, when Governor Forrest sent the National Guard in there to keep the black students out. I think 8 black students in Little Rock High. Governor Albert Forrest sent the National Guard in there to stop the black students. President Eisenhower federalized the National Guard and sent the paratroopers in there to escort the black students in there. And he said, this is the National Guard that the governor was in control of, which is governors in control of the National Guards of that state, to keep us out. I had a lot of respect for President Eisenhower. He was a Republican. Back then, you wasn't worried about a Republican or Democrat. But it has got so toxic nowadays. It's Republican against Democrat. It's a hard situation now. You see, we've got the situation in Washington, D.C. now, with the no Speaker of the House.
They can't
reach it. We're operating haphazardly right now, without a speaker, without a budget, and we're engaged in, to some degree, in the war over in Israel.
And you supporting Ukraine and giving them, sending them billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars.
And the people here who can't get a dollar from it.
But here again, I saw one of the candidates running for the Republican presidency, which is Tim Scott. He's a Republican out of South Carolina. He said black home ownership is the same it was back in the 60s. But every time you look up, you see a set of low-income apartments going up. And this is no encouragement to get out and get your own home.
But they're starting the same thing they started back then.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Keep you in the same position. But I guess, let me show you some perspective that I have. I had, years ago when they sent me, I went to prison for Medicaid fraud. And it was a tough time, tough situation. But I was able to sit there and see and analyze.
How long did you spend?
2 years.
2 years.
And then Oakdale with Governor Ellis and a guy named, can't remember the guy named out of Fairstyle. He was out of Enron. He was there. But anyway, by me sitting there analyzing, reading, studying, researching, I come to a conclusion. I don't know if the Lord showed me this or just a vision that I had or some insightfulness, but it's like it was real to me. The system that we in is putting another system in place. I saw that back then. And I told my family when I got home, I even wrote letters to tell them this, that the system is getting ready to dismantle the system that's in place.
And it's a constant changing thing.
No, they're getting ready to totally dismantle the system to bring this, what they call, new world order in place. And you see it happening, but we don't understand what's happening. And that's kind of how I saw it, like, it's going to be a turnover. There will no longer be United States government. There no longer will be the governor of what do you call that? Germany or Russia. It's going to be one world government.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. Me and you might not see it, but the world is constantly changing. You think we're making progress? We standing still. The immigrants are coming in from everywhere. But I look at today. I work with my son sometimes. Now, you know, doctors say you need to work for your health, and that's what I do now. Work for my health. I enjoy it. Sometimes I operate heavy equipment from it. When I was a boy, I never saw a black man on a piece of heavy equipment. All he had was a shovel. But today, the old shovel almost gone.
Shovel,
and you know, you got equipment doing everything. And I drive pieces of heavy equipment and driving down the streets and waving at a black kid. And he just saw something. And I look at some guy and say, how you want to ever be to do something you've never saw done before? And I like to try things, but life is a complicated system. I'm a guy that's 80 years old. I've never drawn a paycheck for $2 from somebody for unemployment. I've always had a job. I've always had a roof over my head. Never rented a day in my life. And that feeling, it looked like it's gone. And I look at these Hispanics coming across the line. They're coming for a better life. And a lot of them getting a better life over here than they had. And our people, when I say our people, they don't want to work. Some of them don't want to work no more. They've been accustomed to, and I've talked to friends of mine who have relatives have never held a job in their life. How do you train people for that? I believe in going to work and doing something and not waiting there for somebody to reach you something free. That's life. That's what I feel life is about. It's a challenge out here to accomplish something.
Well, that's the only reason. That's the only possible way of finding your purpose.
Right.
Because you existing for a purpose, and we all want to find our purpose. If not, we just existing. And who want to just exist?
But you got people doing it every day.
Every day, and that's why those same people harm you or steal from you.
But now, like I said, I've talked to you talk in depth to you, and I'd like to have a book. People had asked me about writing a book. I'd like to get somebody to take this and write a book, and you know, I could go a little more in details on some of these items and call people names at the sheriff's office, or call people names in the public. You know some people would know who they are. Some of them, a lot of them, dead and gone. Hell, I'm 80 years old now. But it's a struggle. It's still a struggle out here. And I don't believe in just handing somebody something. I stayed registered as a Democrat, but I never voted no strictly Democrat party. I vote the individual. And I've always said the white politicians take the Democratic Party for a joke. They only ask for your vote when they're Democrat.
Guess what?
They can flip flop and go with everything, and all they do is put. I had a woman when I ran for office, and I say I've gotten several calls, but we don't see Democrat on your ballot. Lady, I'm a Democrat. You can go check my credentials. They look for the word Democrat. They look for the word.
There's been a certain training, some kind of way. I've been thinking about that for months now.
But we won't elect an independent, and we don't want to vote for no Republicans. The Republicans are just bad people.
But we have to start thinking for ourselves.
We don't do it.
And stop squandering our vote. Some kind of way you got to teach people that vote has a value.
Yeah.
Monetary value could be too. But you need to learn how to cash that in and not just take it for granted, because the Democrats have not served, they serve their own interests.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, some kind of way, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand.
Well, you know, if somebody says you're a conservative, yes, I'm a conservative. I don't believe in giving you nothing if you don't want to try to work for it yourself.
Matter of fact, if you go read the history as a whole, black people been the most conservative people in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how nature.
But I want to be healthy. I want to be around a long time.
No, but you gonna be around. You taking care of yourself.
I got
You're looking good.
I got
good.
six grandkids and two one great grandchild, another great grandchild on the way. And I've had a good life. I've had a good life. I told you I married 4.5 years ago.
Who's your new wife?
Huh?
Who's your new wife?
Geraldine London. And we got married 4.5 years ago. I enjoyed life with her, and she's been good for me, been good for the family. It's tough living by yourself. You know, you just can't go through this world by yourself. And I stayed by myself 10 years, and it was tough. But, and I told my kids, I said, I don't expect y'all to stop by and check on me and see how I'm doing. Y'all got lives to live. I'm fortunate enough, all my kids graduated from college. All of them have professional, well, 2 of them got professional license, and the third got a master's degree. And the other 2, got the professional license by the state. They've done well. My wife taught, the current wife I got, she taught for 30 years or more. So, she's retired, and I'm retired, and we travel and try to enjoy life.
Do you follow the Southern Nights?
Sometime I do. But I used to follow them when I was younger. But
you have started the 5th quarter club?
No, 6-man club.
6-man club. You have started that?
Yeah. I'm in the 6-man club.
So you still in it?
Yeah, I haven't been in the meeting, but I paid my life membership. I'm in the 6-man
As long as
club.
you pay like the church, as long as you pay your dues, you still good.
As long as you pay your dues, you're all right.
You good.
But I follow Southern. I keep up with her. And my daughter's going to work at Southern right now. She's working at Southern.
Dad's at work there? Okay, good.
Yeah, she's one of the vice. Vice.
She's in finance, huh?
Chancellor, president or something in finance. Yeah.
Yeah, I know she always been in.
Yeah, she's in finance. She's in finance. And but life has been good for me. Life's been good for the family, and I stay active.
But also you've been in on the front line all my
life.
So you've been.
Well, I got a battle too. I'm fighting the VA for increase in disability. I told you I was 10% disabled when I got out.
They keep it there.
Well, I kept it there. They kept it there for 60 years, and 2 years ago they raised me to 30%. I said I got a knee injury, and all these years I've shifted all the way to the right knee. And I said, every time I go to the VA, they say, well, you got to go in there dragging your leg, walking with a cane and all. I said, I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do it. I'm not going to do it. But I got some attorneys working on the VA now, and I'm at 30%, and they didn't give me any back pay, and it's a battle. They say, I got a hearing loss, because I worked on the flight lines, right under the plane, so to be honest with you, because I refueled them. And I said, well, the guy said, well, you need hearing aids, and you got tinnitus, but it's not service connected. How can you tell whether or not tinnitus was service connected or not? And they didn't give me the tinnitus ruling.
No.
But I have long been battling the system, and all I want is the same opportunity that fella. I wanted to represent some people. I did that in the legislature. And the thing about it is, that being that in the legislature, I've reached the goals I've set out for myself. I like politics. I read a lot now and study people, study ways, and I like to read. Run into a new term, I look it up, see what it means,
Pretty good there.
And you don't want to talk to people and use terms that they can't understand, simply say it to them, So I'm just an average common guy on the street.
I don't know about that.
But I've had some history behind it. You know, when the city police made their first black captain, I called him up one day. I said, man, congratulations. I said, city police took 29 years for you to make captain. You're the first black captain with the city police, Richard Rodney. I said, you know, it's a little different with the sheriff's office. I was a captain at 29 years old. Took you 29 years. City police had a practice, and it's still in place. You could move on up to the top of the ladder by just passing the test. No requirement, just pass the test. And blacks didn't make it that far, or they could qualify to take tests for a captain.
They wouldn't let you get there.
They wouldn't get that far. They would not get that far.
But I remember Richard Rodney. I remember him.
Yeah.
I remember him.
But I called Richard on that day. I saw it in the paper. Made the advocate.
So he was the first?
He was the first black captain with the city police. So it took 29 years for him to make captain.
He probably been dead, what, about...
I don't know. He's probably deceased now.
Yeah, he's deceased now.
But I said, you know, I was a captain at 29 years old. I got opportunity to be a leader of a group of people that I missed that opportunity in service. And then I went into business, and I had 25 people working for me at one time. And I'd go to the state and ask the state about doing business with me. I couldn't get any business from the state. I've struck the state twice trying to get business all over the state.
Still that way.
Still that way. And don't think because they're black in charge that we're going to get some business or just a tad bit of it. We're going to finish up this conversation one day.
We're gonna talk some more. I enjoyed it, and I'd like to thank State Representative, Sheriff Deputy, businessman, Mr. Dalton Honore, for giving me the opportunity to let us come into his home, meet his lovely wife, and we had a great time, and we've been sitting here for quite some time, sharing and listening, and I'm just glad that you thought enough of me to allow me to come in and to hear and share your story. I just feel honored. It's just been a blessing and truly uplifting for me to sit here. I've been knowing you a long time. I've always have held you in high respect and high regards. And I'd like to thank you for being here and being part of Count Time.
Well, I'd like to continue the discussion one day because I got a lot more to tell. I can tell you.
And I got more time to listen.
Yeah.
We can record it, and then we can talk some more.
Right.
So I'm gonna give you a little more time to make some more notes.
All right.
And so you call me, let me know. I got my notes ready, and I'm ready to go for round 2.
Right.
And then after that, we're gonna start working on the book.
We'll start on the book.
Thank you. Welcome
All
to
right.
Count Time. All right.
Thank you too.
All right.
Thank you for coming.